Chapter 1102. Yuan Pavilion. The Lu family. After hearing Jing Fei's origins, Yu Haoran immediately thought of Lu Gan, the head of the Blue Dragon Hall of the Lu family that he had killed, and the bald man who was also from the Lu family. Also, through the bald man, he thought of the Empress Dowager, Zixian, whom he had offended several times. However, Jing Fei had arranged for 8 palace maids to use the poison of the devil's snare to attack him. Whether it was her own idea or Zixian's orders behind the scenes, he still needed to investigate further. If it was Jing Fei's own idea, and she wanted to avenge Lu Gan and the bald man, then whether it was asking Emperor Qin to cripple her or immediately returning to the imperial palace in Xianyang City to kill her, it wasn't too troublesome. But if the mastermind was Zixian, then things were a little troublesome. First, he wasn't her opponent at the moment, and second, there was Emperor Qin in the middle. Emperor, are Jing Fei and the Empress Dowager directly related by blood? Are they very close? Yu Haoran looked straight into Emperor Qin's eyes as he asked. Fuma, this matter has nothing to do with the Empress Dowager. Hearing Yu Haoran ask about the relationship between the Empress Dowager and Jing Fei, Emperor Qin knew that his suspect already involved the Empress Dowager and immediately exonerated her. In response, Yu Haoran just looked at Emperor Qin with a cold smile, watching how he justified the woman's words. Fuma, as early as 1.5 months ago, the Empress Dowager had already left the imperial palace to find that person to ask for something back. Looking at the cold smile on Yu Haoran's face, Emperor Qin thought for a while and finally responded helplessly. And it was Zhen who personally asked her to go. Looking at Emperor Qin with a slight frown, Yu Haoran's eyes showed a trace of seriousness. Back then, during the bloody battle in the imperial clan court, he had personally witnessed how deeply the Qin emperor hated the special relationship between Qin Bojun and Zixuan. If it wasn't for Zixian's request to let Qin Bojun live at the cost of sealing her own harem, Qin Bojun would have killed him himself. The fact that Emperor Qin had personally begged Zixuan to come out and look for Qin Bojun meant that the item that Qin Bojun had taken away was very important. It was so important that Qin Bojun could let go of the disgust in his heart. This instantly aroused Yu Haoran's strong interest. Your Majesty, what kind of precious treasure did Qin Bojun take away? A key that can open the secret realm that has been passed down for thousands of years in my Emperor Qin kingdom. In this regard, Emperor Qin did not hide anything. This was because before the secret realm officially opened, apart from some elite disciples who had originally entered the secret realm to train, Yu Haoran and Ting Yunjie were also on the invitation list. This was also the main reason why he had reminded Yu Haoran to return to Xianyang City before the Hidden Dragon rankings began when they parted ways in the Hengduan Mountains. Nodding, Yu Haoran understood why Emperor Qin could temporarily let go of the disgust in his heart for Qin Bojun. At the same time, he also believed that Zixian, who had already left Xianyang City, could not be the mastermind behind the assassination. In that case, the entire process of the assassination was very simple. Consort Jing from the Lu family had planned this method of revenge on her own in order to avenge her family. The only thing that Yu Haoran still had doubts in his heart was that even if the assassination was successful in the end, would Jing Fei be able to escape the bloody revenge of the furious Emperor Qin and Ling Fei? However, he did not continue to pursue this matter. He also did not want to implicate more people because of Jing Fei, so as to avoid affecting Emperor Qin's plan of unifying the southern region in a short period of time. Your Majesty, as a supreme Hua pill that can assist in breaking through to the martial venerable realm with a 50% chance of success, it involves a deeper understanding of the power of laws. After suppressing the doubts in his heart, Yu Haoran began to explain the question that Emperor Qin had not asked earlier. Therefore, with my own cultivation and alchemy skills, even if I can refine a third-rank, first-grade supreme Hua pill, the success rate is less than 30%. In the beginning, He only had a 10% success rate because his cultivation had just broken through to the alchemy grandmaster realm. He did not know much about the power of laws that needed to be integrated into the process of refining the supreme Hua pill. After this period of familiarization and understanding, he already knew how to better integrate the power of laws, and the success rate of refining the pill naturally increased. If he was given a period of time to continue using the nothingness pill condensation technique to increase his alchemy skills, the success rate of refining the supreme Hua pill could reach about 50%. Hearing the dissatisfaction in Yu Haoran's tone, Emperor Qin smiled bitterly and advised him, "My husband, a 30% success rate is already very high. It far surpasses those alchemy grandmasters who are at the peak of the alchemy realm. Your Majesty, I, Yu Haoran, pursue perfection in the alchemy realm. Either I give up my alchemy cultivation, or I have to achieve a 100% success rate," Yu Haoran said confidently. Looking at Yu Haoran, who was exuding a strong sense of confidence, and thinking about the requirements that he had for himself, Emperor Qin, who was deeply moved, slowly closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, the worry and anticipation in Emperor Qin's eyes were replaced by determination. "My husband, I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be returning to Xianying City for the time being. Your Majesty, with your potential and accumulation, 50% to 60% of the southern region's fate will be enough to help you break through to the martial venerable realm." Seeing that Emperor Qin's divine thought was about to leave his body, Yu Haoran hurriedly stood up and left the stone chair, reminding him with a solemn expression. "Therefore, whether it's the Gu Liang clan and the Ren clan of the inheritance families, or the Hengduan Mountain's fate that I've intercepted, you don't have to take it to heart at all, and you don't have to deliberately gather the fate of these three places. I understand." Nodding to indicate that he understood, Emperor Qin was about to leave his body with his divine thought when he suddenly thought of an important matter, so he quickly reminded him. "My husband, Emperor Qin's kingdom, has a very special relationship with the Heavenly Martial Sect, so some time ago, I invited Ting Yunjie from the Heavenly Martial Sect to be my guest. The main reason is that I hope that Ting Yunjie can participate in the trial of the secret realm to further increase his strength. However, when Ting Yunjie found out that not only did you successfully break through to the Pill Dao Grandmaster realm, but you're also able to refine the Supreme Huashao pill of the 3rd level, he rushed back to the Heavenly Martial Sect. Therefore, I suspect that Ting Yunjie might know the whereabouts of the 9-tailed dragon sunflower. With the Heavenly Martial Sect's hidden strength, they can easily kill the 9-headed snake and obtain the 9-tailed dragon sunflower, the main ingredient needed to refine the Supreme Huashao pill. Therefore, I hope that you'll be prepared to refine the Supreme Huashao pill for the Heavenly Martial Sect in advance. Your Majesty, please wait for a moment." Chapter 1103. Yuan Pavilion. After hearing Yu Haoran urging him to stay, Emperor Qin immediately stopped his divine thought from leaving his body. "Your Majesty, when did senior brother Yunjie reach Xianying City?" Yu Haoran asked solemnly. 21 days ago." As Emperor Qin had personally received Ting Yunjie, he did not need to recall and directly replied. It had been almost 2 months since they parted in front of the Sword Tower. In that case, Ting Yunjie must have gone to Death Valley outside Lanling City in the past month. This was because there happened to be a Rank 2, Rank 1 9-tailed dragon sunflower in the inner valley of Death Valley. Your Majesty, use your means to immediately inform the higher-ups of the Heavenly Martial Sect and tell them not to fight for the 9-tailed dragon sunflower, Yu Haoran immediately reminded him when he thought of the dangers in the inner valley of Death Valley. "Why?" Emperor Qin asked in confusion. "Because the place where the 9-tailed dragon sunflower grows is too dangerous. Once you enter, you will definitely die," Yu Haoran explained with a solemn expression. Hearing that Yu Haoran was worried about the danger of the Heavenly Martial Sect's powerhouses fighting for the 9-tailed dragon sunflower, Emperor Qin smiled and comforted him. Don't worry, Prince Consort. The heavenly martial sect's foundation is so deep that it is far beyond your imagination. Even if there are 3 or 5 nine-tailed dragons, the heavenly martial sect's powerhouses can easily kill them, let alone a rank 3 quasi-martial honorable. Your Majesty, the nine-tailed dragon sunflower grows in the inner valley of Death Valley outside Lonling City. Initially, he did not want to reveal the true location of the nine-tailed dragon sunflower to prevent Emperor Qin from being greedy and destroying his firm Taoist heart. However, since he could not raise Emperor Qin's guard with just a vague reminder, Yu Haoran could only take the risk of revealing the existence of Death Valley. Fortunately, Emperor Qin did not reveal any greed in his eyes, which made him feel more at ease. If it's the inner valley of Death Valley, then there won't be a problem. With the strength of that expert from the heavenly martial sect, he can easily kill his way in and out. Shaking his head, Emperor Qin signaled Yu Haoran not to make a fuss. After reminding him in a relaxed tone, he continued to separate his divine consciousness from his body. Your Majesty, what if there is a strange beast in the inner valley of Death Valley that can easily kill a martial saint? Moreover, this strange beast has a good relationship with the nine-tailed snake? Yu Haoran sneered. Emperor Qin asked with a grave expression as his divine sense, which had completely left his body, returned to his body in an instant. Prince Consort, are you sure that the inner valley of Death Valley has a strange beast that can easily kill a peerless martial venerable? I'm very sure, Yu Haoran confirmed with a nod. Because I once saw this strange beast in the inner valley of Death Valley. Prince Consort, what kind of strange beast is this? Emperor Qin immediately asked nervously. This is a direct descendant of the long-armed divine ape, one of the 4 great ancient spiritual monkeys. Not only is its strength terrifying, but it also has a violent personality and admires killing. Yu Haoran said without hiding anything. Back then, when he saw the long-armed divine ape in the inner valley of Death Valley, he was limited by his own strength and experience. He was unable to determine the true strength of the long-armed divine ape. He only felt that it was very powerful. Now, after his cultivation had broken through to the martial saint realm and comprehended the law of life and death, Yu Haoran recalled the actions of the long-armed divine ape when it had killed the rank 4 sacred realm giant python. He knew that the true grade of the long-armed divine ape was not at the peak of the rank 9 sacred realm, nor was it at the quasi-venerable realm. It was very likely that it was a venerable realm strange beast that had sealed its strength. The 4 great ancient spiritual monkeys were terrifying existences that even the 9 great divine beast kings could not suppress. Then, as one of the 4 great ancient spiritual monkeys and a direct descendant of the long-armed divine ape, the long-armed divine ape would definitely be able to display strength that far surpassed its own grade. Therefore, the words that he had used to warn Emperor Qin were definitely not just words to scare him. Emperor Qin frowned slightly. Obviously, he did not know the origins of the 4 great ancient spiritual monkeys. Therefore, he did not know how terrifying the long-armed divine ape was. Therefore, his originally nervous expression gradually relaxed and a relaxed smile appeared on his face again. Your Majesty, Senior Brother Yunjie is a good person and the Heavenly Martial Sect has a very special relationship with Your Majesty. I don't want to see the Heavenly Martial Sect suffer a serious loss of strength because of the fight for the 9-tailed dragon sunflower. In the end, it will fall to the level of a top sect. Seeing the relaxed smile on Emperor Qin's face, it was obvious that he did not believe his evaluation of the long-armed divine ape's strength. Yu Haoran could only use emotional and logical means to move Emperor Qin. However, the final result made him shake his head in disappointment. Emperor's son-in-law, even if the long-armed divine ape's strength is as terrifying as you described, the Heavenly Martial Sect will still have a way to deal with it. Therefore, you can rest assured. Facing Emperor Qin, who was completely unaware of the danger, Yu Haoran could only shrug his shoulders and did not continue to persuade him. This was because he knew very well that even Emperor Qin, who had little to do with him, did not believe in the terror of the long-armed divine ape, let alone the heavenly martial sect, which had an almighty expert who was about to surpass Emperor Wu's realm. If he continued to persuade him, it would be a waste of his breath. Shaking his head, Yu Haoran indicated that Emperor Qin could leave with his divine sense. After Emperor Qin's divine sense left, he waved his hand at the body that he had condensed using the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. His body instantly turned into countless wisps of spiritual qi of heaven and earth and dissipated into the wind pavilion. Haoran, is that long-armed divine ape strength really that terrifying? Looking at Yu Haoran, who was sitting beside her, Qin Lingfei asked with some worry. After encountering that long-armed divine ape, an almighty expert of the martial honorable realm would definitely die. Even an almighty expert who was about to surpass Emperor Wu's realm would find it difficult to escape unscathed. Although the spiritual fruits on the stone table in front of him were very clean and did not contain any poison, when he thought of the 4 palace maids who had secretly attacked him, he still waved his hand and put away the spiritual fruits with some disgust. Then, he sighed and said, Haoran, not only do I know where the heavenly martial sect's mountain gate is, I also know a few elders and hall masters. Why don't we personally make a trip to the heavenly martial sect? Unlike Emperor Qin's arrogant self-confidence, Qin Lingfei, who understood Yu Haoran's character very well, knew that he would never lie. Since he said that the long-armed divine ape's strength was very strong, then the long-armed divine ape must have the means to kill an almighty expert of the martial honorable realm and severely injure an almighty expert who was about to surpass Emperor Wu. Therefore, Qin Lingfei, who was also worried about the heavenly martial sect, could not help but ask, Lingfei, I have already fulfilled my duty. Whether the heavenly martial sect's experts live or die, are injured or disabled, it has nothing to do with me, Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran shook his head and flatly refused. Not to mention that the black market auction would officially begin tomorrow afternoon, he needed to bid for the last medicinal ingredient that could be used to refine pills. There was no way he could leave Twin Oxen Mountain. Even if he had nothing to do and was sleeping in, he would definitely not use his hot face to stick to the heavenly martial sect's cold ass. Moreover, everything was just his own speculation. Chapter 1104. Yuan Pavilion. Faced with Yu Haoran's rejection, Qin Lingfei could only sigh softly and did not continue to insist. From her point of view, the life and death of the experts of the heavenly martial sect was more important than the feelings of the man she loved. Lingfei, congratulations on successfully comprehending the special power of law and successfully breaking through to the martial saint realm. You are now one of the experts of the profound sky continent. Unwilling to continue on the topic of the heavenly martial sect, Yu Haoran turned his head to look at Qin Lingfei. His eyes were filled with joy as he changed the topic. When the 4 palace maids had used their daggers to attack his vitals, although he had focused all his energy on defending against the devil's snare's poison, the powerful aura that Qin Lingfei had emitted in her rage and the power of law that she had used when chasing after the palace maids had allowed him to clearly sense Qin Lingfei's true cultivation and strength. An early second-grade martial saint, possessing strength that did not lose to an early 4th-grade martial saint. It's all thanks to the profound soul fire and the top-notch pills that you gave me. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for me to successfully break through to the martial saint realm before the start of the Hidden Dragon rankings. Hearing Yu Haoran mention her advancement in cultivation, Qin Lingfei immediately threw her worries about the heavenly martial sect to the back of her mind. Her eyes were filled with tenderness as she spoke. My Lord Prince Consort, thank you, Yu Haoran said gently as he reached out to stroke Qin Lingfei's hair. Silly girl, I, Yu Haoran, am yours, not to mention the heavenly flame and pills. Saying thank you is too polite. Sweetness instantly surged from his heart as Qin Lingfei threw herself into his embrace. Then, the two of them began to enjoy a rare moment of tenderness together. The black market, as its name implied, was a market that could not be exposed to the light of day. As the Twin Bull Mountain was not under the control of any power and was also a transit point between the central and southern regions, regardless of whether it was adventurers who liked to travel around, rogue cultivators who traveled alone, or those who were frustrated to escape from their enemies or pursuers, most of them lived in seclusion in the Twin Bull City of the Twin Bull Mountain. Therefore, with all sorts of people mixed together, the black market on Twin Oxen Mountain became more and more prosperous. As the main event of the black market, not only did the auction that was held every half a year gather most of the peak experts in Twin Oxen Mountains, but it also attracted experts from the 7 peak sects and many clans of legacies to participate. The experts who came to participate in the auction would take out top-notch treasures that they did not need for the time being to exchange for the treasures that they needed. Therefore, every time there was an auction in the black market, there would always be some amazing treasures. Left Ox City, on a shabby street in the southern corner of the city. Qin Lingfei couldn't help but widen her eyes in disbelief as she watched one expert after another enter a courtyard that was even more dilapidated than the streets. Some were in a rush, some were leisurely, some were walking in groups, and some were chatting cheerfully with each other as they entered a courtyard that was even more dilapidated than the street. "Haoran, is this the black market auction you mentioned?" "Ling Fei, there's no need to make a fuss. There's another world in the courtyard." Yu Haoran grabbed Qin Lingfei's slim waist and led her into the dilapidated courtyard as he spoke mysteriously. "Stop." Perhaps it was because Yu Haoran was too young, or perhaps it was because Qin Lingfei was too stunning without her veil covering her face, but when they reached the entrance of the courtyard, they were stopped by the young expert in charge of maintaining the black market auction. "Please show me your invitation card." The young expert extended his hand. The smile on Yu Haoran's face instantly vanished as he looked coldly at the young man and scolded him. "You're blind. Do you know who I am?" Twin Oxen Mountain was not ruled by any faction, and the black market auction was held at a fixed place and at a fixed time. However, the guests who could participate in the auction were either powerful rogue cultivators or big shots from top masters or inherited families. They needed someone to guide them and maintain the normal operation of the entire auction. Therefore, it was unknown when the black market auction started, but the experts of the 3 major chambers of commerce took turns to be responsible for it. And this black market auction happened to be maintained by the Heavenly Earth Chamber of Commerce. With his deep friendship with the Heavenly Earth Chamber of Commerce, he was actually blocked by his friend's subordinates today. No matter what the other party's final thoughts were, Yu Haoran felt extremely angry. Especially when there was a beautiful woman by his side, it made his heart surge with a strong murderous intent. No matter who you are, the black market auction has its own rules. Ignoring Yu Haoran's threat, the young expert at the peak of the 9th level Martial King said with an equally cold expression. "Therefore, if you want to enter the black market auction, you must show your invitation card." "Why don't those people show their invitation cards?" Seeing that the young man ignored the experts passing by, Qin Lingfei questioned very discontentedly. Because the actions of the young expert in front of her were either directed at her or Yu Haoran. "Those seniors have extraordinary temperament. At a glance, I can tell that they are either top experts or distinguished guests from top factions." In the face of Qin Lingfei's questioning, the young expert's attitude was much gentler, but there was still a trace of contempt in his reply. "And what about you?" The young expert smiled and shook his head without saying anything. "Good, very good, very good." In the face of the young man's humiliating contempt, Yu Haoran was so angry that he laughed and said good 3 times in a row. Then, a strong murderous intent suppressed the young expert and he said with a hideous smile, "Boy, I've lived in Twin Oxen Mountain for several months. Whether it was opening the sword gauntlet or successfully breaking through the realm of alchemy grandmaster, it attracted countless people's attention. Since you are a waiter of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, then you should know my relationship with your Chamber of Commerce. There is no reason for you not to know me, Yu Haoran. Taking a step forward, the extremely strong murderous intent forced the young expert to kneel on the ground. Reluctantly raising his head, the young expert stared at Yu Haoran with eyes full of hatred. Ignoring the hatred in the young expert's eyes, Yu Haoran continued to ask. You didn't stop other people from entering the auction, but you stopped me, Yu Haoran, which is enough to show that you did it deliberately. You and I don't know each other, and we have never met. There can be no hatred between us, so there must be someone behind the scenes instructing you. Taking another step forward, Yu Haoran asked sternly. Tell me, who instructed you? A trace of panic flashed in the eyes full of hatred. The young expert quickly lowered his head and dared not face Yu Haoran directly. Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Yu Haoran threatened with a murderous look, with the natal sword in his hand directly on the young expert's neck. Chapter 1105. In front of the dilapidated courtyard. After hearing Yu Haoran's murderous threat, the young expert immediately raised his head and looked directly at him. The hatred and panic in his eyes were immediately replaced by contempt, and his tone was full of provocation. Do you dare? In the face of the young expert's contemptuous provocation, Yu Haoran sneered twice. The life sword in his hand suddenly exerted force, and a head spattered with blood rolled to the ground. His widened eyes were still filled with disdain and provocation. Young man, you are in trouble. A linen-clothed old man who had just planned to enter the dilapidated courtyard kindly reminded him. This time, the one in charge of maintaining the black market auction is still the sixth elder of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, Lei Hejuan, who is known as the Soul-Piercing Hand. According to old Lei's character, if you dare to kill the people of the Chamber of Commerce on the street, he will definitely take revenge in front of everyone. It's him. After hearing the linen-clothed old man's reminder, a light flashed in his mind, and Yu Haoran finally knew why the young expert deliberately targeted him. It turned out that the person behind the scenes was Lei Hejuan. At that time, when Jian Yu of the Sky Sword Sect turned hostile and left Yuan Pavilion, Shen Jinwen had explained to him face-to-face that the reason why Jian Yu and others appeared in front of Yuan Pavilion had the most direct relationship with the sixth elder Lei Hejuan. If Lei Hejuan deliberately targeted him just because of the accommodation, then he would not blame him for using his amazing alchemy cultivation to take revenge on the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. I know what to do. After cupping his fist and thanking the gray-clothed old man, Yu Haoran reached out to hold Qin Lingfei's jade-like hand and stepped into the seemingly dilapidated courtyard. In fact, there was another world inside. Qin Lingfei, who was still worried about being retaliated by Lei Hejuan, couldn't help but be stunned when she saw more than 20 cloud chairs floating in the air in front of her. Then, she hurriedly asked, Haoran, what's going on? Ling Fei, I wonder if you've heard of the heaven-tier martial skill of the Cloud Ascension Stairs. Yu Haoran asked with a smile as he held on to Qin Lingfei's jade-like hand and walked towards the cloud chair. I've heard of it. Qin Lingfei nodded. Yu Haoran explained as he pointed at the 28 cloud chairs arranged in an orderly manner in front of him. This is a cloud chair condensed by a senior skilled in formations. He used the Cloud Ascension Ladder's heaven-ranked martial technique and merged it with the 28 Lunar Mansions formation. It is both a symbol of status and a manifestation of strength. Qin Lingfei nodded, indicating that she understood. In addition to the 28 cloud chairs floating in the air, there were also over 100 specially made red sandalwood chairs placed in the courtyard for the ordinary experts to use. At this time, whether it was the red sandalwood chairs or the 28 cloud chairs, they were all filled with guests who were attending the black market auction. He raised his head and searched through the 28 cloud chairs, then directly held onto Qin Lingfei's slender waist and flew towards the cloud chair that represented the Willow Earth Deer constellation. Willow Earth Deer, according to the ranking of the 28 lunar mansions, belonged to the third position of the southern region's 7 lunar mansions, and this position was also reserved for him in advance by Shen Jinwen. The 28 lunar mansions were divided into 4 regions, 7 lunar mansions, respectively representing the eastern region's Blue Dragon's 7 lunar mansions, the northern region's Black Tortoise's 7 lunar mansions, the western region's White Tiger's 7 lunar mansions, and the southern region's Vermilion Bird's 7 lunar mansions. According to the agreement formed by the black market auction, or rather the unspoken rules, the experts from the central region could occupy 7 of the 28 constellations' cloud chairs in every auction. They were the 4 cloud chairs that were ranked first in the east, south, west, and north regions, and the second cloud chair that was ranked second in the north, west, and south regions. Because the central region's strength was the strongest, they should occupy more and better cloud chairs. And as the eastern region's strength was second only to the central region, they could keep one more cloud chair. This was the difference between the strong and the weak, and also represented that the Tianxian continent had always followed the law of the jungle. Just as Yu Haoran was about to step on the Willow Earth Deer's cloud chair, 2 lightning-like figures, one from the left and one from the right, sneak attacked his vital points on both sides. Yu Haoran already knew that someone would not let him sit on the cloud chair steadily. The ancestral witch's body activated in advance, and the wishful bell integrated into his body's defense allowed him to ignore the attacks from both sides. After using his elemental energy to send Qin Lingfei into the Willow Earth Deer's cloud chair in advance, a purple rod instantly appeared in his hand. Puff! Although the double defense of the ancestral witch's body and the wishful bell could block the sneak attacks from both sides, the violent shock formed by the powerful force still made him spit out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, the 2 people who attacked him were only at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint. Therefore, this kind of vibrating power was not serious to him, and it would not affect his strength, overturning rivers and seas. Ignoring the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth, Yu Haoran, who was flying high in the sky, used 90% of his elemental energy, 90% of his soul power, and 80% of his ancestral witch's physical strength to directly perform the second move of the Monkey Emperor's rod inheritance. The terrifying attack formed by the purple rod directly enveloped the 2 experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint who attacked him just now. Using nearly 90% of his strength to perform the overturning rivers and seas, the power of the purple rod attack had already reached the strength of a 3rd tribulation quasi-martial saint. How could 2 sneak attackers of the 9th grade martial saint realm withstand such a terrifying attack? However, facing the purple rod that was rapidly approaching them, the 2 experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm were not afraid at all. They just sneered at the purple rod that was getting closer and closer. When the purple cudgel was less than 10 meters away from the 2 martial saints, the terrifying power of the purple cudgel had already begun to tear apart the clothes of the 2 martial saints. 2 more figures instantly appeared in midair. One of the experts at the peak of the 2nd tribulation quasi-martial saint realm directly used his natal sword and performed a high-grade earth sword technique. The other expert at the 3rd tribulation quasi-martial saint realm threw out a heavy punch. The sharp sword chi and the heavy punch that contained terrifying power collided with the purple rod at the same time. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, Yu Haoran was directly bounced back into the sky by the strong rebounding force. The 2 experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm were unable to withstand the energy waves formed by the rod, sword chi, and fist. They directly fell to the hard ground with heavy injuries. The expert at the peak of the 2nd tribulation quasi-martial saint realm directly spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, and his face instantly became as pale as paper. Even the strongest expert at the 3rd tribulation quasi-martial saint realm, although he was not severely injured, his aura became chaotic. Chapter 1106. In the Auction House of the Black Market. Two opponents at the peak of the 9th-level martial sage were not worthy of him, using the body of ancestral wizard and the stick technique inherited by the Monkey Emperor. But at the moment of the attack, the Cloud Chair representing Sun Horse of Star from the southern region and the Cloud Chair representing Golden Bull Ox from the northern region respectively flashed a trace of killing intent that made him feel a fatal threat. Therefore, when he used the overwhelming stick technique just now, in addition to using the strength of the body of Ancestral Wizard, 90% of the original energy and soul power, he also secretly used the secret method of overdrawing the bloodline of Ancestral Wizard. What he really wanted to deal with was the opponents in the two Cloud Chairs who could bring him fatal danger. It was also because he used the secret method of the bloodline of Ancestral Wizard in advance that the confrontation just now only made the chi and blood in his body a little turbulent, and he did not really suffer a serious injury. Sixth Elder, what are you doing? By using the formation of the 28 constellations and the Cloud Chair formed by the heaven-level martial skill of the cloud climbing ladder, it could form an independent space that could not be seen by naked eyes and divine thoughts. In this way, it could not only avoid being watched by the auction guests below, but also do some unspeakable means. On the Cloud Chair that represented the Taurus Ox constellation in the northern region, Shen Jinwen clenched his fists tightly. His breathing gradually became heavier as he looked at the dignified middle-aged expert who was about 40 years old sitting on the Cloud Chair and questioned. Shen Jinwen, you are just the person in charge of a small branch. You are not qualified to question me. Turning his head and glancing at Shen Jinwen behind him, the sixth elder from the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce scolded him in a serious tone. Sixth elder, you are right. I am not qualified to question your order, but as a senior of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, I have to say a few words in consideration of the development of the Chamber of Commerce. In the face of the scolding of the sixth elder, Jun, Shen Jinwen retorted without fear. Sixth elder, with the deep friendship between the first elder and Miss Yunxiang, the business of our Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce has successfully seized nearly half of the market share in the southern region in just a few months. Moreover, with the amazing talent of Prince Consort in alchemy, our Chamber of Commerce's alchemy business in the whole Tianxian continent has at least increased by nearly 3% compared with the past. Glancing at Yu Haoran, who was holding the purple cudgel tightly and emitting a strong evil spirit gradually, Shen Jinwen felt both angry and worried and continued to question him. For a noble person like Prince Consort Ma, our Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce desperately protects him. Why did you arrange for Bing Wen and Elder Chun to sneak attack him? If you do this, aren't you forcing Prince Consort to be an enemy of our Heavenly World? Have you obtained the approval of the 3 guild leaders and the elders before doing this? Bang bang! Lei Hejuan abruptly slapped the armrest of his chair and stood up. He looked at Shen Jinwen, and a trace of murderous intent slowly rose from his body as he threatened. Shen Jinwen, do you want to die? Sixth elder, although my status is not as high as yours and my power is not as great as yours, according to the rules of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, you are not qualified to punish me. Facing the threat of the sixth elder, Shen Jinwen retorted without fear. Then, he reached out and tore the space cloud formed by the constellation Cloud Chair. When he stepped out of the space, he left a warning that made Lei Hejuan's face even gloomier. 3 days later, the first elder will bring Miss Yunxiang to Mount Xuanyu, not only to check the Chamber of Commerce's business in Mount Xuanyu, but also to visit Prince Consort. At that time, I will tell the first elder what happened today in full detail. I hope you can take care of yourself, sixth elder. Looking at Shen Jinwen, who stepped out of the constellation space, Lei Hejuan's eyes flashed with a cold killing intent. Yu Haoran reached out to wipe the remaining trace of blood at the corner of his mouth and licked his lips. Looking at the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable, whose aura had returned to normal, he roared excitedly. Your strength is passable. Let's see if you can withstand my second move of the staff technique. Seeing that Yuhauran's aura was rising rapidly and that he was planning to continue using the staff technique, the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable could not help but frown. Then, he turned his head to look at the first tribulation quasi-martial venerable, whose aura had dropped to the first tribulation quasi-martial venerable level. In the end, he sighed softly and walked toward the cloud chair that represented the star-sun-horse constellation. Coward of the Guliang clan, you can attack whenever you want and leave whenever you want. How can there be such a good thing in this world? Seeing that the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable was planning to return to the cloud chair, Yuhauran suppressed his impulse to soar into the sky and mocked him with a cold smile. If you want to leave safely, you have to ask the purple staff in my hand if it agrees. Boy, you better watch your mouth. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Yuhauran's mocking made the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable's face darken instantly. His eyes were filled with anger as he threatened. "Tsk." Yuhauran snorted disdainfully and continued to mock him. "Old bastard, when you sneak attacked me just now, did you show mercy? Boy, since you know that I am from the Guliang clan, you should know how powerful the Guliang clan is. Under such circumstances, you still dare to humiliate me like this. Do you want to be enemies with the Guliang clan? Or perhaps, the Emperor Qin Kingdom wants to declare war with the Guliang clan. Coward and old bastard." Yuhauran mocked him mercilessly. At the same time, a strong murderous intent rose from the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable. At the same time, two first tribulation quasi-martial venerables appeared beside him. The ninth-grade martial sage, who had been severely injured and had barely recovered with the help of elixirs, directly appeared in front of the cloud chair that represented the willow soil deer constellation and pointed his sword at Qin Lingfei. Dragons have reverse scales, and those who touch them will die. At the same time, Yuhauran also had forbidden areas that he could not touch. Qin Lingfei was one of his forbidden areas. No matter how sinister the Guliang clan was, no matter how many experts they sent to surround him, as long as he killed the enemy that provoked him, the anger in his heart would dissipate. However, when the ninth-grade martial sage of the Guliang clan pointed his sword at Qin Lingfei, he really had a strong impulse to annihilate the Guliang clan. Under the strong impulse, he directly cut his finger and forced the blood out into the air. Then, he solemnly swore an oath. The Guliang clan is the family that inherited the bloodline of the Emperor Wu. There are many experts in the clan, and it is one of the top forces in the southern domain. The Guliang clan is as cowardly as a mouse. Facing the threat of the strange beasts in the Hengduan Mountains, they have hidden themselves from the world. The Guliang clan is arrogant and arrogant. They are tyrannical and bully the weak. Although I, Yuhauran, do not have a high cultivation, I am willing to use my hot blood to get rid of a malignant tumor in the profound sky continent. Chapter 1107. In the Black Market Auction Hall. The top powers of the Guliang family, who had forced Yuhauran to take a blood oath, took a few steps back. Yuhauran, shut up immediately. Seeing that Yuhauran was about to take a blood oath, the top powers of the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable immediately shouted at him. Yuhauran chose to ignore the top powers of the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable and looked up into the sky. I, Yuhauran, swear by the rules of the way of heaven. Damn it. Seeing that Yuhauran ignored him and continued to swear by the rules of the way of heaven, the top powers of the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable cursed inwardly and immediately rushed forward, wanting to interrupt Yuhauran's swearing. However, what made him extremely frightened was that an irresistible force of imprisonment prevented him from moving his body. He could only watch as Yuhauran continued to swear. I, Yu Haoran, swear by the rules of the Way of Heaven, that I am willing to slaughter the Gu Liang family alone within a month and return the fresh air of freedom to the southern region. If I, Yu Haoran, am afraid, my spiritual soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, am afraid, my spiritual soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, am afraid, my spiritual soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, am late and break the contract, my spiritual soul will be destroyed. Aloud, as Yu Haoran swore by his own blood and the voices in the black market auction hall rang out, a single eye slowly appeared in the sky above Twin Bull Mountain. The single eye was emotionless as it glanced indifferently at the 28 cloud chairs. All the cloud chairs that formed an independent space automatically dissipated, and the top powers sitting on the cloud chairs were all exposed to the crowd. Then, the single eye looked at the 4 top powers of the Gu Liang family who were floating in the air. Traces of life energy were extracted from the 4 experts of the Gu Liang family and Yu Haoran. Then, the eye shifted its gaze and looked directly at the Gu Liang clan that was tens of thousands of kilometers away. Then, tens of thousands of life auras belonging to the Gu Liang clan's direct descendants and collateral family members were extracted by the eye formed by the heavenly Tao. In the end, the several tens of thousands of clansmen from the Gu Liang clan merged with Yu Haoran's life aura, forming a blood oath. However, it was different from the blood oath that was formed when they encircled and annihilated the Hengduan mountain range quasi-venerable realm beast. That time, under the proclamation of the heavenly Tao, every corner of the Tianxian land could hear the content of the blood oath. This time, the blood oath was only witnessed by the people present at the black market auction. Rumor has it that Yu Haoran is either the reincarnation of an immortal god or the illegitimate child of the heavenly Tao. Just as the blood oath was formed and the eye formed by the heavenly Tao gradually faded away, a middle-aged expert from the Golden Dog constellation representing Lu Jin said to the junior beside him with a solemn expression, "Now it seems that the rumor is not groundless. Yu Haoran is indeed protected by the heavenly Tao. Fifth uncle, he only used his own blood as an opportunity to trigger the completion of the blood oath formed by the heavenly Tao. How could Yu Haoran be protected by the heavenly Tao?" A young man in his 20s retorted with a face full of dissatisfaction. "Yu Zhe, the blood oath formed by the heavenly Tao just now was not an ordinary blood oath, but a blood oath of fate." The middle-aged expert who was called Fifth Uncle did not feel any dissatisfaction because of his junior's rebuttal and explained in detail. The so-called blood oath of fate refers to the gathering of a person's fate as a wager. If Yu Haoran loses in the end, not only will his divine soul be destroyed, but the fate gathered in his body will also be divided up by the Gu Liang family. If Yu Haoran wins in the end, not only will the entire Gu Liang family be destroyed, but the fate gathered by tens of thousands of family members will all gather in his body. After explaining to this point, the middle-aged expert who was called Fifth Uncle turned to look at his junior and asked, "Yu Zhe, do you know what it means to gather a huge amount of fate from a family with the bloodline of Emperor Wu?" The young man who was called Yu Zhe shook his head, indicating that he did not know. The fate of tens of thousands of family members of the Gu Liang family is enough to increase Yu Haoran's chances of breaking through to the martial honorable realm by 30%. The middle-aged expert who was called Fifth Uncle said word by word. Z. When the middle-aged expert who was called Fifth Uncle was teaching his junior, he did not deliberately lower his voice. This caused everyone in the black market auction to hear him clearly. Although the benefits brought about by the blood oath of providence shocked everyone present, what really made them gasp was the 30% chance of helping them break through to the martial venerable realm. After all, Yu Haoran had the potential to be a top genius, and he had the ability to refine the supreme Huazuan pill. If combined with the 30% chance of breaking through, then the door to the martial honorable realm was completely open to Yu Haoran. At the same time, some of the strong experts who were strong and murderous had an idea in their hearts. It was an idea that was directly asked by Yuze. Fifth uncle, if I choose a small family now and use the same method to swear, can I also obtain the fate of this family? Yuze asked excitedly. Hearing his junior's excited suggestion, and seeing the greed in the eyes of some of the people present, the middle-aged expert who was called Fifth Uncle could not help but snort coldly. His face was full of mockery. If you dare to do so, not only will you not be able to obtain the fate of the family that was massacred, but because of too much killing, you will trigger a backlash from your inner demon and your soul will be destroyed in the end. Fifth uncle, why can you Howren do it? Yuze asked unhappily. Sigh. Seeing that his junior was unconvinced, or perhaps because he did not believe his reminder, the middle-aged expert who was called Fifth Uncle could not help but sigh. He regretted that he had said too much and told his junior the secret of the blood oath of fate. Yuze, this is why I said that Howren is protected by the rules of heaven. Because only he can form the blood oath of fate, and only he can enjoy the benefits of the blood oath of fate. However, in the face of the elder's reminder, the young man who was called Yuze obviously did not believe it. He lowered his head, and a cold light flashed in his eyes from time to time. Howren, I will kill you now and then divide the huge fate of the entire Hungduan mountain range. Howren had used his own blood as a guide, and the lives of tens of thousands of the Gu Liang family's people as the foundation to form the blood oath of fate. This caused the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable from the Gu Liang family to grit his teeth and growl in a low voice. Ling Fei, sit obediently on the cloud chair. Ignoring the threat of the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable, Howren first turned his head and ordered Qin Ling Fei, who wanted to rush to his side and fight with him. At the same time, his consciousness warned his second avatar in the Sea of Consciousness. Chapter 1108. In the Black Market Auction Hall. Brother Yu, don't worry. The second clone nodded and gestured to him. I have already set up a formation that can instantly extract the Soul Stone's soul power. It will allow you to perform the law martial technique 4 times in a row. After dispersing the ancestral sorcerer's body and putting away the purple rod, Howren raised his head coldly. He looked at the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable who was charging at him and quickly raised his arm. Life and death. As he shouted in a low voice, a special energy caused the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable's face to change. Then, he immediately activated the lower-grade Sage Realm defensive artifact in his body and quickly set up a dual defense of soul power and origin power in front of him with his palms. Unfortunately, the law martial technique formed by the law of life and death could not only transcend time and space, but also ignore any kind of defense. In the end, the law of life and death's power directly penetrated the origin power defense, the soul power defense, and the Sage Realm artifact's defense and shot into the third tribulation quasi-martial honorable's body, allowing him to enjoy the wonderful process of life and death. Life and death. With the support of the second clone's soul power, Howren then performed the law martial technique of life and death. The target of his attack was the peak first tribulation quasi-martial honorable. Life and death. Howren only paused for a second. With the help of the formation that instantly extracted the soul power from the soul stone, Howren used the law martial technique for the 3rd time. His target was the last quasi-martial venerable. As for the peak 9th grade martial saint who had not fully recovered from his injuries, he could easily kill him with his sword technique or the ancestral sorcerer's body. The shock brought about by the law martial technique of life and death caused all the experts on the cloud chairs to suddenly stand up and the experts on the red sandalwood chairs to retreat to the corner of the courtyard. Everyone's faces were filled with fear as they looked at the 3 quasi-martial honorables who were going through life and death, death and life, and finally death. This is a nomological martial skill formed by the laws of life and death. The middle-aged powerhouse who had just made the blood oath exclaimed in a trembling voice. As for the youth named Yuze standing behind him, there was a deep fear in his eyes, as well as a trace of unconvinced resentment. As for Lei He-jun, who was standing in front of the cloud chair that represented Gold Bull, his entire body trembled. His face was pale as he fell onto the cloud chair. His mouth even muttered to himself, "How did I provoke such a monster? How did I provoke?" With the help of the formation that his second clone had set up to instantly extract the soul power of soul stones, Yuharan used the 30% of his soul power that he had barely recovered to activate the ancestral shaman's body before executing the basic staff arts crushing Mount Tai, directly killing the peak 9th grade martial saint expert who was in a daze and did not know how to dodge or resist at all. After that, he flashed and appeared beside Qin Lingfei. After instructing Qin Lingfei to collect the storage rings of the experts of the Gu Liang family, he immediately sat cross-legged on the cloud chair and began to fully recover the soul power that he had consumed. "Howran, I will return to the palace now and earnestly ask Father to lend you the Emperor's sword to help you." Seeing Howran slowly opening his eyes, Qin Lingfei said anxiously as she handed over the 4 storage rings that she had collected to him. Directly reaching out to grab Qin Lingfei's arm, Howran shook his head and refused. "Lingfei, a mere Guliang family is not worth using the Emperor's sword. Howran, the Guliang family is one of the only 2 top forces in the southern region that can threaten our great Emperor Qin's kingdom. Father had sent people to investigate the Guliang family's situation." Seeing that Howran was not only unwilling to lend the Emperor's sword, but also looked down on the Gu Liang family, Qin Lingfei, who was burning with anxiety, hurriedly used her divine sense to remind him. After nearly 20 years of collecting information, the number of martial saints and quasi-martial saints in the Gu Liang family has exceeded 200. Moreover, in the forbidden area of the Gu Liang family, there are 2 peerless experts that are far stronger than the quasi-martial saints. Only 2 peerless experts of the martial saint realm. After hearing Qin Lingfei reveal the true foundation of the Gu Liang family, Howran secretly sighed in relief. Because in his guess, with the Gu Liang family's inherited bloodline of the Emperor Wu and their personality of cherishing life, there should be at least 3 peerless experts of the martial saint realm. Now it seemed that he had overestimated the cowardly Gu Liang family. Patting Qin Lingfei's jade-like hand, Howran smiled and shook his head, his attitude resolute as he refused. "Lingfei, there's no need." In fact, the reason why he had used his blood as a guide and made a blood oath with the Heavenly Ways rules was because he was a little impulsive. However, he had truly made this decision after careful consideration. Firstly, from the sneak attack of the Gu Liang family's 3rd tribulation quasi-martial saints, he was afraid that he had already been listed as one of the key targets of the Gu Liang family that must be eliminated. As the saying goes, one is not afraid of thieves stealing, but one is afraid of thieves remembering. How could there be a reason to guard against thieves all day long? Moreover, with the Gu Liang family's way of doing things, in the future, regardless of whether he went out to train or cultivated in seclusion, he would have to guard against the sneak attack of the Gu Liang family's experts. It could even be a sneak attack by a peerless expert of the martial saint realm. If he was not careful, he would be in fatal danger. Since that was the case, it would be better to eliminate the Gu Liang family in advance and nip the problem in the bud. Secondly, after comprehending the life and death dual laws during this period of time, he had discovered a very serious matter. That was, without experiencing the trials of life and death, it would be very difficult to quickly improve the comprehension of the life and death dual laws. As the life and death dual laws that he mainly cultivated, it would also affect his cultivation progress. If he continued to cultivate steadily like this, he did not know when he would be able to reach the perfect realm of the laws. Only then would he be able to attempt to break through and become a peerless expert of the martial saint realm. Thirdly, when he obtained the last medicinal ingredient that could assist in refining pills and awakened the sleeping Thaling with the Thaling's means, he would definitely have a way to eliminate the Gu Liang family. It was also because of the above three considerations that Yu Haoran finally chose to make a blood oath with the Heavenly Ways rules. As for the blood oath formed by the Heavenly Ways rules, although he was slightly surprised, he could understand the Heavenly Ways rules after giving it some thought. Haoran, it's fine if you don't borrow Father's Emperor sword, but when you encircle and annihilate the Gu Liang family, I must accompany you. Seeing Yu Haoran's resolute opposition, Qin Lingfei knew that there would be no result even if she continued to persuade him. However, when she thought of how Yu Haoran had faced the 11 quasi-martial Saint Realm strange beasts alone in the Hengduan Mountains and how she could only be a bystander in fear, the thought of sharing life and death with him suddenly emerged in her heart. Ling Fei, do you think I will agree? Yu Haoran instantly withdrew the smile on his face and asked seriously. Chapter 1109. In the Black Market Auction Hall. After Divine Thoughts directly activated the cloud and mist of the cloud chair to form an independent space, Yu Haoran pulled Qin Lingfei onto the cloud chair and threatened with a sneer. Ling Fei, you know the means of Yu Haoran. If I don't want you to accompany me, even if your attitude is 100 times more resolute, I have 100, 1,000 ways to make you unable to go. So, you'd better not make me angry, otherwise, I will send you back to the palace now. After hearing Yu Haoran's unquestionable decision with a sneer, Qin Lingfei could only shake her head and sigh. Then, she looked up at Yu Haoran's eyes and said emotionally, Haoran, if you have an accident, I will go with you immediately. Ling Fei. Looking at Qin Lingfei's hot lips, Yu Haoran, who was deeply moved, slowly lowered his head. After Yu Haoran activated the cloud chair to form an independent space, the people on the scene gradually woke up from the shock. The experts in the air sat back on the cloud chair, and the experts who retreated to the corner of the courtyard returned to the red sandalwood chair. However, no one on the scene took the initiative to take out the treasures for auction. Shen Jinwen, who was familiar with and understood Yu Haoran's strength, was the first to wake up from the shock. Seeing Lei Hejuan sitting on the cloud chair representing the Golden Bull Star, he did not intend to announce the official start of the auction. As the person in charge of the Heavenly Earth branch of the Twin Bulls Mountain, Shen Jinwen took the initiative to stand up and took out the 3 drops of geocentric spiritual milk prepared in advance and shouted, 3 drops of 500-year-old geocentric spiritual milk in exchange for a low-grade Sage Realm defensive magic weapon. The black market auction of the Twin Bulls Mountain was different from ordinary auctions. The black market auction had neither fixed auction items nor a dedicated auctioneer. Every warrior present took out the precious auction items that they did not need. After showing them to the people on the scene, they directly said the price they wanted to auction or the treasures they needed. If someone was willing to exchange, it meant that the auction was successful. If no one was willing to make an exchange, it would mean that the auction had failed, and the auction would start anew. The market price of a 500-year-old geocentric spiritual milk was about 30 pieces of 4th-grade, 1st-grade spirit stones, which was enough to exchange for a low-grade Saint Stage defensive magic tool. Therefore, as soon as Shen Jinwen's voice fell, a gray-robed old man who had returned to the auction immediately took out a silver-white defensive armor and completed the first item of the black market auction with him. After exchanging for 3 drops of 500-year-old geocentric spiritual milk, the gray-robed old man didn't leave the high platform. Instead, he took out a fist-sized, pitch-black refining material from his storage magic tool and shouted in a loud voice, "Black gold that can be used to refine low-grade Exalted Realm artifacts weighs 70 kilograms. It needs to be exchanged for a 4th-tier medicinal pill that can eliminate inner demons." Then, the gray-robed elder looked directly at Yu Haoran's cloud chair. When Shen Jinwen took the initiative to exchange for the geocentric spiritual milk, he interrupted the passionate kiss between Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei. Yu Haoran reluctantly raised his head to leave the burning lips that made his heart flutter. Through the clouds, he looked at the gray-robed elder on the high platform. Looking at the black gold in the gray-robed elder's hand, a hint of desire appeared in his eyes. Although he wasn't proficient in refining weapons, Thaling, who was about to wake up, was an expert in refining weapons. The black gold that could be used to refine low-grade Exalted Realm artifacts would definitely play an important role in his hand. Haoran, there are several pieces of black gold that weigh more than 50 kilograms in the palace's treasury. Seeing that Yu Haoran was interested in the black gold in the gray-robed elder's hand, Qin Lingfei, who had forced herself to calm down, quickly reminded him. If you want it, I'll ask someone to send it to you immediately. After hearing Qin Lingfei's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately extinguished the idea of exchanging for the black gold. He then said to her, I'll go back to the palace after some time. You can give me the black gold then. Okay. Considering that Yu Haoran would accompany her to participate in the training in the secret realm, Qin Lingfei nodded without any objections. I have a 4th-rank first-grade spirit consolidating pill here. I wonder if I can exchange it for the black gold in your hand. Just when Yu Haoran gave up on exchanging for the black gold, the sound of an exchange came from the space of the cloud chair that represented the Xiexing constellation. Sure. Without any hesitation, the gray-robed elder wrapped the black gold in his hand with Yuanli and sent it into the space of the cloud chair. Then, a pill bottle flew from the space of the cloud chair into the gray-robed elder's hand. After opening the pill bottle and taking a closer look, the gray-robed elder confirmed that the pill in the bottle was indeed a 4th-rank first-grade spirit consolidating pill. He then jumped off the high platform and returned to his own red sandalwood chair. After the gray-robed elder left, the experts in the space of the cloud chair that represented the Xiexing constellation didn't want to immediately take out their items for exchanging for the time being. Therefore, there was no one on the high platform for the time being. However, in less than 3 seconds, a peak 9th-rank Martial Saint expert jumped onto the high platform and took out a jade slip and introduced it to everyone present. An unknown inheritance jade slip. You need to exchange it for a 4th-rank first-grade Dao Comprehension pill or a Dao Comprehension stone that can increase your comprehension of the laws. The unknown represented uncertainty. In other words, no one knew whether the jade slip contained the cultivation method and martial skill, or secret technique and comprehension. It could also be an experience record that didn't have much use. Therefore, in the face of the peak 9th-rank Martial Saint expert's request, the scene was silent for more than 30 seconds. Sigh. Seeing that no one was willing to exchange with him, the peak 9th-rank Martial Saint expert sighed in disappointment. When he was about to jump off the high platform, he suddenly heard a familiar voice. A 4th-rank first-grade Dao Comprehension pill. Looking up at the cloud chair that represented the Xiexing constellation, the peak 9th-rank Martial Saint expert immediately nodded excitedly. Then, he used his spirit energy to send the jade slip in his hand into the space of cloud. Immediately after, a sparkling and translucent pill flew from the clouds into the other party's hand. Thank you, Yu Zongshi. Looking at the Dao Comprehension pill that Yu Haoran gave him, although it was only a 4th-rank first-grade pill, its true effect was not inferior to a 4th-rank 3rd-grade pill. The peak 9th-rank Martial Saint expert cupped his fists and thanked him excitedly. You're welcome. After replying calmly, Yu Haoran didn't directly look at the records in the jade slip. Seeing Yu Haoran directly put away the jade slip, Qin Lingfei asked in confusion, Haoran, aren't you going to immediately look at the contents of the jade slip? Chapter 11:10. Inside the black market auction venue. Ever since the encounter with the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable's divine sense jade slip in the 4 symbols sex treasury, Yu Haoran had always been very wary of jade slips with unknown inheritances. As such, He needed to wait until the Thaling had truly awakened and gone through his inspection before using his divine sense to check the contents of the unknown inheritance jade slip. Qin Lingfei pointed at the empty stage and asked as she nodded to indicate that she understood. Haoran, don't you have any treasures that you want to auction? Yes, but there's no rush. Nodding, Yu Haoran smiled and indicated to Qin Lingfei that there was no rush for now. Whether it was a formal auction or a black market auction, the real highlight was usually at the end. With his current status and identity, if he took out his auction item too early, not only would it disrupt the normal progress of the auction, it would also damage the reputation that he had painstakingly built up. Moreover, according to the rules of the black market auction, although everyone could exchange for items that they liked, they only had one chance to auction their item. As such, he needed to wait for the right time to take out treasures that were enough to tempt that spiritual medicine. Seeing that Yu Haoran did not appear on the stage, an old man in a dark blue robe appeared from the crowd of people sitting on the red sandalwood chairs. Afterwards, the blue-robed old man took out an azure pearl and shouted loudly. The water avoidance pearl can allow a person to live in water like a water-type exotic beast. Exchange for an earth elemental pearl of the same attribute. Whether it was the water avoidance pearl or the earth elemental pearl, they were all top-tier exotic treasures nurtured by top-tier exotic beasts. Not only were they extremely rare, but they were also extremely difficult to obtain. As such, the blue-robed old man did not get the earth elemental pearl that he was looking forward to. He could only jump off the stage with a face full of disappointment. After the blue-robed old man jumped off the stage, a woman with an extremely enchanting figure wearing a black corset dress and a black cloak jumped onto the stage. Then, the black-clothed woman took out 6 jade boxes from her storage Dharma artifact and placed them on the high platform. After opening them, a rich aroma of spirit fruits began to spread in all directions. 1000-year vermilion fruit, 4th grade frost origin fruit, 4th grade purple star barrier breaking fruit, 4th grade astral yang fruit, 4th grade fiery phoenix fruit, 4th grade bone spirit fruit. Looking at the 6 jade boxes that the black-clothed woman opened and the 6 spirit fruits placed in them, a middle-aged man in the alchemy grandmaster realm among the crowd on the red sandalwood chairs loudly introduced the origin and grade of each spirit fruit. 6 top-notch spirit fruits in exchange for a first-grade 4th step samsara pill. After nodding and thanking the alchemist, who took the initiative to introduce the origin of the 6 spirit fruits, the black-clothed woman raised her head and looked at the constellation cloud chair where Yu Haoran was sitting. She made her request. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran stared at the cloak that the black-clothed woman used to cover her face. He pondered the reason why she wanted to exchange for the samsara pill and her background. Ahem! Seeing Yu Haoran stare at the black-clothed woman with an abnormally hot body that exuded endless temptation, Qin Lingfei, who felt that her body was inferior to the other parties, couldn't help but cough lightly with some jealousy. Yu Haoran, who had been awakened by the cough, glared at Qin Lingfei with dissatisfaction before continuing to look at the black-clothed woman. The samsara pill is also known as the soul-drawing pill. It is one of the few top-notch pills that can repair the sea of knowledge and heal the soul. Although the samsara pill you want to exchange for is only a first-grade 4th step samsara pill, the difficulty of refining it is no less than a 3rd-grade 9th step rising dragon pill. So, miss, these 6 first-grade 4th step spirit fruits are not enough to exchange for a first-grade 4th step samsara pill. Yu Zongshi, then what kind of treasure do you need to help me refine a samsara pill? Although 6 spirit fruits were not enough to exchange for a samsara pill, Yu Haoran's explanation just now showed that not only could he refine the samsara pill, but he was also willing to help her refine it, so the black-clothed woman immediately asked excitedly. A first-grade 4th step spirit illuminating fruit. Looking at the black-clothed woman's excited expression, the corners of Yu Haoran's mouth curled up slightly, and then he used his divine sense to speak. After hearing the type of spirit fruit Yu Haoran wanted, the black-clothed woman couldn't help but take a few steps back in panic, almost falling off the high platform. Immediately after, a strong murderous aura quickly rose from her body. Her eyes, which were covered by the black cloak, emitted a chill that could be felt by everyone present. "Howren, you didn't make any outrageous request just now, did you?" The black-clothed woman's overly intense reaction, coupled with Yu Haoren's unwavering gaze, and the slightly curled corners of his mouth, made Qin Lingfei immediately think of that outrageous request. This made her feel a little heartache, and she asked with some dissatisfaction, "What outrageous request?" Her heartache and dissatisfaction made Yu Haoren frown and ask, "Serve me in bed." Qin Lingfei gritted her teeth and said, Faced with Yu Haoren suddenly reaching out to flick her forehead, Qin Lingfei immediately asked with dissatisfaction while feeling the pain, "Haoren, what are you doing?" "Lingfei, what are you thinking in that little head of yours? What kind of person am I, Yu Haoren?" Yu Haoren also questioned with dissatisfaction. In response, Qin Lingfei only rubbed her aching forehead and looked at him with eyes full of submission. After a light sigh, Yu Haoren pointed at the black-clothed woman and said, "Lingfei, a rank 4 first-rank samsara pill, apart from being able to repair the sea of knowledge and heal the soul, has a very special effect. That is, when taken together with the spirit-illuminating fruit, it can unlock a special cold Yin constitution. As a unique spirit-illuminating fruit, it can only be found in the Death Swamp, one of the 10 great forbidden areas. Therefore, I suspect that this black-clothed woman, who doesn't dare to show her true face, is very likely a native of the Death Swamp. Moreover, the request I made just now was for a rank 4 first-rank spirit-illuminating fruit. It's not the kind of request you think it is." "Haoren, I'm sorry." After hearing Yu Haoren's slightly angry explanation, Qin Lingfei quickly held his hands and looked at him with an apologetic face. Yu Haoren said with a rather helpless tone as he reached out and rubbed her forehead that had just been flicked. "Lingfei, based on the alchemy ability I just displayed, if I were a person who lusted after beauty, how could I only have you by my side, and how could I still maintain the Longyang constitution?" Chapter 11:11. In the Black Market Auction Hall. "Even though I really want it, I can't have it now," Yu Haoren explained gently as he gestured for Qin Lingfei to lie on his lap. "Lingfei, even though your cultivation has broken through to the martial saint realm, the mysterious Yin Qi in your body has yet to completely dissipate. If I were to take you now, it would destroy the solid foundation that the mysterious Yin Soulfire had laid for you. It would also affect your breakthrough to the martial honor realm in the future. Don't you feel terrible?" Qin Lingfei asked, her heart aching. "I can take it," Yu Haoren said through gritted teeth as he took a deep breath. "Who are you?" the black-robed woman asked coldly as she tried to suppress the murderous aura that had just emerged from her heart. "I am someone who can help you refine the first-grade 4th-level samsara pill," Yu Haoren replied calmly as he stroked Qin Lingfei's hair. "How did you know that I have that kind of spiritual fruit?" the black-robed woman continued to ask. The black-robed woman's cold question confirmed Yu Haoren's explanation. Qin Lingfei, who was filled with guilt, wrapped her arms around his waist and buried her head deep into his abdomen. However, Qin Lingfei did not know that her actions had made Yu Haoren even more uncomfortable. Fortunately, the black-robed woman continued to ask and diverted his attention. "I am a pill refiner with decent talent and ability. It is normal for me to know about the existence of that kind of spiritual fruit through the samsara pill," Yu Haoren replied calmly. He then gave the black-robed woman 2 choices. "Miss, between you and me, we are only talking about a deal, nothing else. If you agree to my request, after the auction ends, you will provide me with the 8 herbs needed to refine the samsara pill and I will help you refine the pill. If you don't agree, we will pretend that nothing happened and we will still be strangers." Faced with Yu Haoren's choice, The black-clothed woman closed her eyes and carefully considered it for a while. When she opened her eyes again, she suddenly put away the 6 spirit fruits on the stage. Then, she directly soared into the sky and left the auction house, quickly flying away from Twin Oxen Mountain. Yuhaoran's face instantly darkened when he saw the black-clothed woman refuse to accept the deal and leave Twin Oxen Mountain. His gloomy expression was not because he was determined to obtain the turbid spirit fruit, but because the black-clothed woman's overly vigilant behavior proved that she was a native of the Forbidden Land. Thinking of the hatred the natives of the Forbidden Zone had for the human martial artists of the outside world, as well as their cautious actions, it was likely that they wouldn't let him off so easily since he was familiar with and understood the uses of the spirit-illuminating fruit. After the black-clothed woman left the auction house, a first tribulation quasi-martial saint with white hair jumped onto the stage. He took out a rank 4 third-rank spiritual medicine and wanted to exchange it for a pill that could increase his cultivation. In the following period of time, Yuhaoran told Qin Lingfei about some unknown secrets of the Tianxian continent while observing the items that every martial artist who climbed onto the stage wanted to exchange. However, after more than 40 martial artists took out their items in succession, there was no treasure that he wanted to exchange. Until a little old man who was about 60 years old and less than 1.2 meters tall jumped onto the stage and took out a beast egg that exuded exuberant vitality. Yuhaoran signaled Qin Lingfei to get up. Then, he used his divine sense to carefully examine the beast egg's quality and origin. In fact, the moment the little old man took out the beast egg, not only did Yuhaoran use his divine sense to examine it, the other 27 martial artists on the constellation cloud chairs and the hundreds of martial artists on the red sandalwood chairs also used their divine sense to examine the beast egg. Regarding this, the little old man who held the beast egg in his hand not only did not care, but also gave everyone present nearly a minute to examine the beast egg. The beast egg of an iron-winged eagle that contains the bloodline of an ancient divine beast, the golden-winged roc, in exchange for a rank 4, rank 7 life essence pill that can extend one's lifespan by 1,000 years. After hearing the little old man's trade request, a total of 5 constellation cloud chairs called out their desire to exchange for the beast egg. Only Yuhaoran couldn't help but frown. Firstly, he didn't have a rank 4, rank 7 life essence pill in his possession. Moreover, he also lacked the main ingredient needed to refine the life essence pill, elder grass. Secondly, when he was examining the beast egg just now, he discovered that although the beast egg in the little old man's hand was an iron-winged eagle that contained the bloodline of an ancient golden-winged roc, the beast egg contained a trace of an indescribable aura. Thirdly, although the little old man who auctioned the beast egg had a head full of silver hair and seemed to be quite old and needed a life essence pill to extend his lifespan, his arcane master's instinct told him that the little old man's vitality was abnormally exuberant and that he didn't need a life essence pill to extend his lifespan. It was precisely because he had an inappropriate guess in his heart that Yuhaoran didn't participate in the auction of the iron-winged eagle's egg in the face of the little old man's trade request. Yu Zongshi, could it be that this iron-winged eagle's egg isn't to your discerning eyes? Ignoring the other 5 constellation cloud chairs experts who wanted to exchange for the beast egg, the little old man raised his head and looked at the Willow Earth Deer constellation's cloud chair and asked with a frown, "Senior, please don't joke around." Originally, he had some doubts about the other party's motives. Now, the little old man's action of wanting to exchange the beast egg with him further strengthened his suspicions. But in a situation where they didn't know each other, why would the other party deliberately target him? Yuhaoran could only guess the other party's true intentions through further communication. As an iron-winged eagle that contains the bloodline of an ancient peak divine beast, the golden-winged roc, even a peerless martial exalt would be moved. How could this junior not be moved? It's a pity that this junior doesn't have a life essence pill that can extend one's lifespan, nor do I have the medicinal ingredients needed to refine a life essence pill. Yu Zongshi, this old man has enough medicinal ingredients to refine a life essence pill. As long as you agree to refine it, this iron-winged eagle's egg is yours. After hearing the reason why Yu Haoran had given up on the auction, the little old man immediately suggested enthusiastically, "Thank you, senior, for your great kindness." The more enthusiastic the little old man was, the higher the vigilance in Yu Haoran's heart. The more he couldn't agree to the exchange of the beast egg so easily. This was because he couldn't describe the aura in the beast egg. Whether or not it was life-threatening, he couldn't be 100% sure. Furthermore, Qin Lingfei was by his side. He definitely couldn't let his beloved woman be in danger. Therefore, in the face of the other party's suggestion, he first thanked him, then pretended to speak in a helpless tone. Chapter 11-12. Inside the black market auction venue. Yu Zongshi, how can a black bear with a normal bloodline compare to an iron-winged eagle that contains the bloodline of the golden-winged roc? Faced with Yu Haoran's second reason for giving up on the iron-winged eagle egg, the little old man didn't seem to notice his strange behavior and suggested even more enthusiastically, "You can totally hire someone else to slaughter that black bear and erase the traces of your contract with the black bear, then sign a new pet beast contract with the iron-winged eagle." After hearing the other party's suggestion, the fake smile on Yu Haoran's face was immediately replaced by anger. Through the space of cloud and mist, he looked coldly at the little old man and reminded him with a chilling tone, "I hope senior won't make this kind of joke. Otherwise, don't blame this junior for falling out with you." To him, the black bear wasn't a pet beast at all, but a family member whom he could trust. Otherwise, with the black bear's potential and future achievements, how could it possibly become his pet beast? Moreover, the real reason why he used the temptation of pills to annihilate the Yang family in the central region was because Yang Shouzhuang had severely injured the black bear. Now, the other party actually wanted him to kill the black bear that was like a brother to him. While this infuriated him, it also completely extinguished any thoughts of probing further into the other party's intentions. Now, Yu Haoran only wanted to wait until the black market auction ended and find a chance to capture him alive, then use the soul-searching technique to check his memories. This old man was only joking just now. Yu Zongshi, don't take it seriously. Hearing the chilling tone in Yu Haoran's reminder, the little old man laughed dryly and immediately set the target of the egg on Qin Lingfei. "Yu Zongshi, even if you can't sign a new iron-winged eagle because you already have a pet beast, I'm afraid your lover doesn't have a pet beast yet. With the iron-winged eagle's potential and majestic appearance, it's definitely the most suitable pet beast for your lover. Ling Fei, stay in the mist and don't move around." In the face of his threat, if the little old man stopped here, he would have to wait until the black market auction was over before he could find a chance to make his move. Now, the other party was relentlessly pursuing him, wanting to give him the beast egg. Perhaps even a fool could see that the other party's intentions were not pure. Taking action at this time would not break the rules of the black market auction, nor would it arouse the dissatisfaction of the people present. Therefore, Yu Haoran directly activated the physical body of the ancestral magus. While taking out the purple rod, he instructed Qin Lingfei, "Be careful." Nodding her head, Qin Lingfei reminded him. Yu Haoran asked with a frosty expression as he tore through the cloudy space and instantly appeared above the little old man's head. "Who are you? Why do you want to harm me?" "Yu Zongshi, what do you mean by that? When have I ever harmed you?" Seeing that Yu Haoran had appeared above his head and was about to make a move, the little old man did not panic at all. Instead, he immediately pretended to be aggrieved and reprimanded him. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran quickly performed the secret technique of overdrawing the ancestral magus's bloodline. He also reminded the second clone in his sea of consciousness to immediately set up a formation to extract the soul power of the soul stone. Because of the little old man's overly calm reaction, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. Although there was no fatal warning in his heart, his cautious character still made him prepare everything in advance to avoid capsizing in the gutter. Old man, since you want to use the beast egg of the iron-winged eagle to exchange for the life essence elixir to prolong your life, why don't you agree to the conditions of the life essence elixir offered by the 5 seniors? Holding the purple rod tightly in his hand, Yuhauran stepped on the void and walked towards the high platform as he questioned with a cold smile. Old man, I have clearly expressed that I do not want to exchange for the iron-winged eagle's beast egg. Why are you pestering me? In the face of Yuhauran's pressure, the little old man, who originally had an aggrieved expression, suddenly revealed a strange smile. Immediately after, a terrifying aura that caused the entire world to change color quickly rose from his body. This is the strength of a peak third tribulation quasi-martial venerable. The terrifying aura that suddenly erupted from the little old man immediately alarmed the people on the cloud chairs of the 27 constellations. The middle-aged expert who pointed out the blood oath of Providence could not help but cry out involuntarily as his expression changed. In a situation where the rules of the heavenly way had not been completely fixed and it was difficult for a martial venerable expert to appear, a peak third tribulation quasi-martial venerable expert could be said to be the peak of strength in the Tianxian continent. Because you, Yuhauran, deserve to die. As the terrifying aura rose, the little old man, who was holding a short sword that emitted a fishy smell and a cold light, revealed his killing intent and instantly appeared in front of Yuhauran. The short sword, which contained boundless terrifying power, pierced directly towards Xiao Chen's heart. Ding-dang! Accompanied by the sound of the weapons colliding, Yuhauran was unable to dispel the rebounding force in an instant, causing him to retreat 9 steps before he spat out a mouthful of blood. Old man, I didn't expect you to know my character so well, Yuhauran said calmly as he reached out to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. When facing the little old man, the other party's overly calm reaction had already made Yuhauran suspicious. He suspected that the other party was very likely taking advantage of his cautious nature and using suspicious actions to thoroughly enrage him. Then, the other party would lure him out of the cloud space of the cloud chair and use this opportunity to assassinate him through a sneak attack. Although the old man's strength was at the peak of third tribulation quasi-martial venerable and he could successfully kill Xiao Chen through a direct confrontation, there were many experts present at the black market auction who hoped that Xiao Chen could refine the supreme Hua pill for them. In order to preserve the hope of breaking through to the martial venerable realm in the future, they would definitely lend a helping hand. This was probably the real reason why the little old man did not dare to act rashly. It was precisely because he had these suspicions in his heart that he had activated the secret technique of overdrawing the ancestral which bloodline in advance and had his second clone set up the formation to extract the soul stone. It was also because he had been prepared in advance that he had successfully blocked the little old man's fatal sneak attack. It seems that my understanding of you is still not thorough enough, the little old man said with slight disappointment as he put away the short sword in his hand that emitted a fishy smell and a cold light. Then, he raised his head and glanced at the cloud chair that represented the 27 lunar mansions. He discovered that at least 7 second tribulation quasi-martial venerable experts had already taken out their natal magic weapons and were ready to support Yuhauran at any time. The little old man said goodbye with a smile on his face. Yu Zongshi, the mountains will not change and the rivers will continue to flow. I hope that in the future you will be able to eat, sleep, and play well. Chapter 11-13. In the Black Market Auction Hall. 100 Faces Old Man, I plan to refine 3 to 4 Supreme Huazuan pills for the Flowing Cloud sect, Snow Palace, Lingshao Pavilion, weapon refining sect, heavenly martial sect, and Xiandao school. Facing the little old man who was about to leave the high platform, Yu Haoran put away the purple stick and said something that made the little old man and everyone else's expressions change. "You, what are you trying to do?" The smile on his face was instantly replaced by a gloomy expression. Before his body completely disappeared, the little old man shouted with a stern expression. In response, Yu Haoran only sneered and turned back to the cloud chair. "Haoran, are you okay?" Qin Lingfei asked worriedly as she looked at Yu Haoran, who had collapsed onto the cloud chair and consumed several top-notch healing elixirs. "Ling Fei, I'm fine." Yu Haoran shook his head and indicated. Using the secret technique of overdrawing the ancestral witch's bloodline only increased the power of his attack, but it did not increase his defense by much. The double defense of the ancestral witch's body and the Ru Yi Bell only allowed his defense to reach the level of a second tribulation quasi-martial venerable. If he had not used the purple stick in time to offset a part of the attack power of the short sword, even if he did not die, he would have fallen from the clouds on the spot, giving the 100 Faces old man a chance to continue his attack. "Haoran, who is the 100 Faces old man? What do you mean by what you said just now?" Looking at Yu Haoran, whose breath was gradually stabilizing with the help of the healing pills, Qin Lingfei temporarily relaxed. At the same time, she recalled that when the little old man left, he shouted out the other party's origin and said something inexplicable. "It's a small sect in the central region's Tianshui County. It's a sect that's good at disguising technique. The 100 Faces old man is the sect leader of this sect. When he was attacked by the 100 Faces old man's short sword, by constantly retreating to offset part of the rebound force, it only caused his internal organs and meridians to be severely injured. His sea of consciousness and dantian were unscathed. Therefore, this did not affect him from using top-notch healing pills to recover from his injuries while explaining to Qin Lingfei the origin of the All Faces old man. After hearing Yu Haoran's introduction of the origin of the 100 Face old man, Qin Lingfei said in disbelief, "Haoran, even the top first-rate sects don't necessarily have an expert who is at the peak of the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable. It's too strange for an insignificant sect to have an expert like the 100 Face old man. Ling Fei, a mediocre sect. It's just a way for the one-faced old man to hide his true origins." At this point, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and said with a solemn expression, "Because his true origin is actually an elder from the Yushu Temple's underground palace. The 100 Face old man, who was an expert in the art of disguise, could not only change his appearance that could not be distinguished by spiritual sense, but he could also change his body through special means. It could be said that he had reached the pinnacle of disguise. If he had not accidentally seen the 100 Face old man's transformation in his previous life, he would not have known. If the 100 Face old man had not temporarily relaxed when he left the high platform and leaked a trace of his own aura, he would not have been able to guess his true origin. Haoran, why does the Yushu Temple want to deal with you?" After hearing that the 100 Face old man came from the Yushu Temple, Qin Lingfei instantly understood the meaning of Yu Haoran's last sentence and immediately asked anxiously. After all, as one of the top 7 sects in the Tianxian continent, the Yushu Temple was an unbearable pressure for every warrior in the Tianxian continent, whether it was its overall strength or the deterrence that had lasted for thousands of years. "It might have something to do with the fact that I killed a deacon of the Yushu Temple in front of the Sword Tower some time ago," Yu Haoran replied truthfully. "Haoran, are you really planning to join forces with the top 6 sects to deal with the Yushu Temple?" After knowing the reason behind Yu Haoran's conflict with the Yushu Temple, Qin Lingfei immediately thought about how to resolve the hatred between the two sides. But before that, she needed to know Yu Haoran's true attitude towards the Yushu Temple. "How is that possible?" After hearing Qin Lingfei's question, Yu Haoran immediately shook his head and said mockingly, "None of the top 7 sects are kind people. If I join forces with them to deal with the Yushu Temple, I'm afraid that they will sell me out the moment we form an alliance. Then why did you refine 3 to 4 supreme Huazuan pills for the top 6 sects? Qin Lingfei asked in confusion. It's not only to take revenge for the sneak attack of the 100 Faces old man, but also to cause trouble for some people in the Yushu Temple, Yu Haoran replied shamelessly. Haoran, aren't you afraid that the experts of the top 6 sects will come looking for you? Faced with Yu Haoran's shameless answer, Qin Lingfei felt a little funny, and reminded him worriedly. Ling Fei, I am an alchemist who can refine the supreme Huazuan pill. When to start refining the pill and the success rate of refining the supreme Huazuan pill are all decided by me alone. At this point, Yu Haoran's gaze turned to the south where the Death Valley was. What's more, do you think it's so easy to gather the 108 medicinal herbs needed to refine the supreme Huazuan pill? Perhaps it was because of the sudden change just now that the attention of the people present was temporarily not on the auction, causing the auction to be temporarily suspended. Seeing that no one went up to the stage to carry out the auction, he did not want to expose more secrets because of Qin Lingfei's questioning. At the same time, the threat of the indigenous people of the Forbidden Area and the 100 Flowers old man made Yu Haoran even more urgent for Thaling to wake up in advance. Therefore, he did not wait for the best time to strike. After signaling Qin Lingfei to be quiet for a while, he appeared on the high platform in a flash. Then, he took out 3 elixir bottles from his storage ring and said to the people present. Rank 4, 3rd grade 5 Life Mysterious Gate Elixir, Rank 4, 3rd grade Ice Heart Jade Bone Elixir, and Rank 4, 3rd grade 3 Striped Spirit Clearing Elixir in exchange for a Rank 3, 1st grade Ghost-Faced Flower. Yu Haoran, who appeared on the high platform, instantly pulled everyone's attention back to the auction. After seeing the 3 elixirs that he had just taken out, which were used to help a quasi-martial venerable expert go through the body calamity, the soul calamity, and the state of mind, the atmosphere at the scene suddenly surged. However, when faced with the ghost-faced flower that Yu Haoran had proposed to exchange for, nearly 90% of the martial artists present did not know what kind of spiritual flower it was. Ghost-faced flower, a spiritual flower that contains a strong poison. The alchemy master who had pointed out the origins of the 6 spiritual fruits of the woman in black explained in detail to the people around him. Although the ghost-faced flower does not appear in the Tianxian continent's 100 poison ranking, the strong poison it contains is not inferior to the demon soul fruit, which is ranked 91st. Yu Zongshi, I do have a rank 3, 1st grade ghost-faced flower, but I do not need these 3 elixirs. Chapter 11-14. In the Black Market Auction Venue. Senior Zhou, you don't want this junior's promise to refine the supreme Huazuan pill for free, do you? Yu Haoran asked with a smile. That's right. The expert surnamed Zhou in the cloud chair admitted and explained. I have successfully passed the body tribulation and the mind tribulation. I have 90% confidence in passing the soul tribulation, so I want a promise to refine the supreme Huazuan pill for free. Senior Zhou, it's not that I don't want to agree, but can you collect the 108 medicinal herbs needed to refine the supreme Huazuan pill? Faced with the request of the expert surnamed Zhou, Yu Haoran asked reluctantly. Yu Zongshi, you don't have to worry about this. I have my own way of collecting the medicinal herbs, the expert surnamed Zhou said in a somewhat impolite tone. In this regard, although Yu Haoran still had a smile on his face, his attitude also began to become serious. Senior Zhou, if this junior agrees to help you refine the supreme Huazuan pill for free, then the value of a 3rd rank 1st grade ghost-faced flower is somewhat low. In addition to this ghost-faced flower, I will be responsible for helping you resolve the grudge between you and the Yushu Temple. How about it? The expert surnamed Zhou, who had already thought of a countermeasure, said confidently. His expression did not change, but his heart trembled slightly. Yu Haoran had already guessed the origin of the other party and knew that the other party was not talking nonsense just now. The day when the 108 medicinal herbs are gathered is the day when this junior opens the furnace to refine the supreme Huazuan pill. In order to reassure Qin Lingfei and to delay for himself, Yu Haoran left his promise. Here. A jade box made of green jade flew out from the cloud chair space representing the Heart Moon Fox constellation. Yu Haoran chose to believe in the other party's character. He did not open it for inspection and directly put it away. Then, he returned to his own cloud chair space. Haoran, that's great, Qin Lingfei said happily as she hugged Yu Haoran's arm. And Yu Haoran nodded with a smile on his face, but he felt extremely depressed in his heart. Strength. If he had the strength of a martial venerable, would the Yushu temple dare to provoke him? How dare this Shogai look down on him? No. Not only did they not dare to, but they would also carefully observe his expression. Ling Fei, you can watch the auction by yourself first. If there's anything you like, you can bid on it directly. Right now, I need to recall the refining process of a certain pill formula, Yu Haoran instructed Qin Lingfei as he leaned back in his chair. I got it. Qin Lingfei was able to guess that Yu Haoran would definitely want to refine a pill that was not inferior to a supreme Huadan in terms of quality for a ghost-faced flower. Therefore, she nodded obediently and turned her attention to a young expert who had just leaped onto the high platform. Closing his eyes, Yu Haoran began to carefully recall the pill formula that could awaken Thaling. In the Yuan Pavilion, Ling Fei, after returning to the palace, you must cultivate well and try to raise your cultivation to the peak of the 7th grade Martial Saint Realm before the start of the Southern Region Hidden Dragon rankings. Standing in the courtyard of the Yuan Pavilion, Yu Haoran held Qin Lingfei's hand tightly and carefully reminded her. Because only a peak of the 7th grade Martial Saint Realm can unleash 30% of the power of the profound Yin Soul Fire and have the chance to enter the top 100 of the Southern Region Hidden Dragon rankings. I'll remember it. Qin Lingfei nodded with tears in her eyes and reluctantly reminded him. Haoran, you're alone outside. Safety first. You must control your temper and endure some things if you can. I understand. Nodding, Yu Haoran instructed the 30 Imperial Guards who were guarding by the side. Safely escort the princess back to the palace. Yes, sir. The 30 Imperial Guards replied in unison. Let's go. Yu Haoran waved to Qin Lingfei, who was surrounded by the Imperial Guards. After Qin Lingfei and the others disappeared from his sight, the smile on Yu Haoran's face was instantly replaced by indifference. After using his mind to wake up the black bear in the beast pet space and instructing him to guard him, Yu Haoran stepped into the cultivation room and sat down cross-legged. However, he didn't refine pills for the time being. Instead, he carefully recalled what happened at the black market auction. Although he was arrogant and easily offended people, he had never offended the Chamber of Commerce of the Heavenly Earth, the Gu Liang family of the Southern Region, the natives of the Death Swamp, and the Yushu Temple like he did at the black market auction. This made him vaguely feel that there seemed to be a problem with his own luck, as if the protection of the rules of heaven was decreasing. Moreover, through the deal with the ghost-faced flower, he found that the impact of his alchemy cultivation breaking through the realm of the Great Grandmaster and being able to refine the supreme Huashuan pill was far from what he imagined. Some of the top families of inheritance and the experts of the 7 top sects never really looked up to him. This also made him realize that the auxiliary cultivation system was always just a small way. What could really determine a person's status and influence was martial arts, which represented real strength. Martial arts was the right way for warriors to cultivate. After sorting out and reviewing the gains and losses of the black market auction, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and swallowed an elixir used to calm his qi and concentrate his mind. He tried his best to calm his emotions completely. When his mind was completely calm, He directly took out the 8 spiritual herbs with exuberant vitality and the life-taking grass, which was ranked 3rd on the 100 poisons list. "Brother Ran, guard me," Howren instructed the second doppelganger in the sea of consciousness before performing the void pill condensation technique. "Don't worry about refining the elixir, I'll take care of everything." After nodding his head, the second doppelganger left the sea of consciousness and directly appeared in front of the door of the cultivation room, acting as the second barrier to protect Howren while he refined the elixir. Mobilizing the elixir fire to float in midair, he then performed the void pill condensation technique through a seal. Howren solemnly began to refine the elixir that could awaken the Thaling. "Third brother, what do you think the clan leader and the elders are thinking?" Next to a pine tree about 100 meters away from the Heavenly Human Chamber of Commerce, a young man of about 16 or 17 years old complained to another slightly older man. "With just the 2 of us, who are at the martial warrior realm, trying to assassinate Howren, whose real strength is not inferior to the 3rd tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm, is like sending lambs to the tiger's mouth. We are just sending ourselves to death. Chen Yuan, lower your voice." After hearing his brother's complaint, the slightly older man immediately reminded him. Then, after looking around and seeing that no one was paying attention to them, he whispered to Chen Yuan in a low voice. "It is precisely because Howren's strength is too strong. Unless the ancestor of the martial honorable realm personally takes action, no one in the clan is a match for Howren." Chapter 11-15. In front of the Heavenly Earth Chamber of Commerce. "Third brother, regardless of the success of the sneak attack, I'm afraid we won't be able to keep our lives." After hearing third brother's explanation, the young man called Chen Yuan reminded him with a dejected look on his face. "Chen Yuan, as a direct descendant of the Gu Liang family, our sacrifice is worth it for the Gu Liang family to continue for thousands of years," the young man called third brother said righteously. Seeing the fanaticism in third brother's eyes, the young man called Chen Yuan shook his head inwardly and didn't say anything more. "Chen Yuan, it's about time. Let's pretend to be customers buying cultivation resources and find an opportunity to sneak into the Yuan pavilion in the back of the Chamber of Commerce." Looking at the 6 or 7 warriors entering the Chamber of Commerce, the young man called third brother instructed. Then, without waiting for Chen Yuan's agreement, the young man called third brother strode into the Chamber of Commerce. The young man called Chen Yuan shook his head with a bitter smile and quickened his pace to catch up. It's up to you now." Just as the 2 youths from the Gu Liang clan walked towards the Chamber of Commerce with large strides, an old man with silver hair appeared beside the pine tree that they were originally standing on. There was also a young woman with a face that could cause the downfall of nations and cities, and a charming and enchanting temperament. Looking at the 2 young people entering the Chamber of Commerce, the silver-haired old man instructed the beautiful woman. "Master, the Zhou family has already come forward to mediate, and the Sky Sovereign has already agreed to resolve the grudge between him and Howren. Why do you still want to arrange for disciples to sneak attack?" The beautiful woman reminded the silver-haired old man reluctantly. "Humph." Faced with the disciple's reminder, the silver-haired old man couldn't help but snort coldly. In the entire Tianxian continent, except for the 4 inherited guardian families, no matter who offends our Yushu temple, the destruction of their family is their punishment. Their final destination is to have their souls scattered. At this point, the silver-haired old man suddenly sighed, and a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. Moreover, Howren's talent in alchemy is rarely seen in 10,000 years. The alchemy ability he possesses is too great a threat to our Yushu Temple's secret plan. Not to mention the Zhou clan, even if the clansmen of the 4 great legacy guardian clans personally came to mediate, we would definitely not let Howren off. All right. After hearing her master's reason for not killing Howren, the beautiful woman shrugged and nodded helplessly. Then, the beautiful woman reached out and touched her face. When her jade-like hands left her face, the stunning woman instantly turned into a person who was exactly the same as Qin Ling Fei in terms of appearance and temperament. Not only do you have to pay attention to your safety, you also have to avoid exposing the relationship between you and me, the 100 Faces old man, looking at the disciple who had transformed into Qin Ling Fei. The silver-haired old man nodded in satisfaction and then reminded her with a serious expression. Master, I understand. After nodding her head to indicate that she understood, the woman who had become Qin Ling Fei suddenly slammed her palm against her chest. After spitting out 3 mouthfuls of blood essence, the woman who had turned into Qin Ling Fei not only turned as pale as a sheet of paper, but her aura also dropped directly to that of a martial emperor. Go! The silver-haired old man ordered as his body gradually turned illusory when he saw that his disciple had used self-harm to get closer to Yu Haoran. The pills are done. As an elixir that used the life-seizing grass as its main ingredient, although it was only a rank 3 first-grade pill, the difficulty of the entire refining process was no less than that of the supreme Huashuan elixir. Fortunately, his powerful pill condensation technique and his own talent in alchemy had allowed him to successfully refine the elixir that could awaken the Thaling. Moreover, after this round of refining the elixir, he was more confident in refining the supreme Huashuan elixir by 10%. Roar. Boom. After keeping the 9 elixirs that were floating in midair, Yu Haoran took a closer look and realized that the quality of the elixir was quite good. Then, when he was about to enter his consciousness and personally awaken the Thaling, the furious roar of the black bear suddenly came from outside the refining room. It sounded like the explosion of the black saliva ball. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran retracted his alchemy fire. When he was about to go out to take a look, the black bear's furious roar was immediately replaced by a wail. Woo! Without any hesitation, Yu Haoran rushed out of the refining room and appeared beside the black bear that had fallen to the ground. Master, I've been poisoned. Seeing Yu Haoran rush to his side, the black bear reminded him before he completely fainted. Looking at the black bear that was originally very black had become as black as charcoal because of the poison, Yu Haoran's face instantly turned gloomy. After the 2 forces from his sleeves had directly knocked out the 2 young men who were trying to escape, he immediately analyzed the origin of the poison from the bloodstain at the corner of the black bear's mouth. Arrow venom. From the bloodstain at the corner of the black bear's mouth, he analyzed that the poison in the black bear's mouth was only the arrow venom, which was ranked 90th on the 100 poisons list. After that, Yu Haoran secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After taking out a detoxification pill from his storage ring and feeding it to the black bear, Yu Haoran immediately picked out 9 types of highly toxic medicinal herbs that could improve cultivation. Then, using the void pill condensation technique, he refined the detoxification pill that could detoxify the arrow venom on the spot. In just 2 minutes, 9 bright red elixirs appeared in his hand. After feeding the detoxification pill that he had just refined into the black bear's body and then putting it back into the beast pet space, Yu Haoran stepped toward the 2 young men who had just been knocked out. People from the Gu Liang family. The blood oath of providence formed by the heavenly Tao could sense the existence of both parties within a certain distance. Therefore, just as he walked up to the 2 young men, Yu Haoran knew their origins. Because the cultivation of these 2 young men was too low, the aura they emitted was too weak, and at the same time, he was immersed in refining the elixir, so he didn't sense their existence in advance, causing the black bear to be attacked by the highly toxic poison. However, since he already knew their origins, the rest of the matter would be easy to deal with. Bending down, he directly lifted the 2 young men up. Yu Haoran planned to hand them over to his second clone in the training room and let his second clone use the method of searching their souls to understand the true heritage of the Gu Liang family. Meanwhile, he entered the victor's consciousness and immediately used the elixir to awaken the Thaling. Not only would he help him deal with the thorny problem in front of him, but he would also take the opportunity to explain the many doubts that had accumulated in his heart. Howren, save me! Just as Yu Howren carried the two young men from the Gu Liang family and stepped into the training room, he suddenly heard a familiar cry for help. Chapter 11-16. Outside Yuan Pavilion. Ling Fei, what's wrong with you? Looking at Qin Ling Fei, whose chest was stained with blood, her face was as pale as paper, and her breath was weak, Yu Howren appeared beside her and asked anxiously, "Cough!" When she opened her mouth to answer Yu Howren's question, Qin Ling Fei could not help coughing because of the sudden injury in her body. Along with the coughing, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Ling Fei, take this healing elixir quickly. Looking at Qin Ling Fei, whose injury was getting worse, Yu Howren immediately took out a crystal-clear elixir with a trace of red in the middle. He put it directly to her mouth and ordered her to take it quickly. After a slight hesitation, Qin Ling Fei finally opened her mouth and swallowed the healing elixir. After feeling the healing elixir and the rapid recovery of the injury in her body, she secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Ling Fei, what happened on the way back to the palace? Where are the imperial guards who were protecting you? Looking at Qin Ling Fei, whose breath was gradually stabilizing, Yu Howren breathed a sigh of relief and then hurriedly asked, "Howren, we were ambushed on the way back to the palace. In order to cover my escape, the imperial guards all..." Speaking of this, Qin Ling Fei's eyes moistened, and tears fell from the corner of her eyes. "Ling Fei, it's okay. Yu Howren, will definitely find out who the murderer is. I will definitely avenge you and those imperial guards." Yu Howren reached out to hold Qin Ling Fei's small waist and solemnly promised. However, after feeling Qin Ling Fei's slightly stiff body, a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. "Howren, thank you." When she raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes, Qin Ling Fei secretly observed Yu Howren through the gaps between her fingers. She noticed that Yu Howren was looking at her with passion at this moment. A fierce look flashed in her eyes. A small silver-white snake that was only 4 to 5 centimeters long was coiled around the finger of her right hand in her sleeve. "Ling Fei, the healing elixir just now could barely suppress the further injury in your body." Yu Howren slightly tightened his left hand around her waist and reminded her while taking her to the practice room in Yuan Pavilion to further heal her injury. "Okay." Nodding her head gently, Qin Ling Fei directly leaned on Yu Howren's body with the help of his strong hug. But the masculine pheromones from Yu Howren's body instantly made her feel absent-minded. She bit the tip of her tongue forcefully, and the intense pain made her quickly wake up. Just as the fingers of her right hand, which were hidden under her sleeves, were about to give the little silver snake a command to launch a sneak attack, the hand that was hugging her suddenly clenched. A numb feeling spread throughout her body, causing her mind to go blank in an instant. "Brother Ran, do it!" Taking advantage of the fact that Qin Ling Fei's mind was completely confused by his dragon claw move just now, Yu Howren used the doppelganger's sensing method to instruct his second doppelganger in the practice room. His 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. Before Qin Ling Fei really woke up, his second doppelganger sealed her sea of consciousness, her dantian, and her physical body in time. After he hugged Qin Ling Fei tightly and entered the practice room, he first let his second doppelganger use the formation to seal the door that he had broken. After that, Yu Howren let go of his left hand that was hugging her waist. After putting more than 2 meters of distance between them, Yu Howren unlocked her tongue, ears, and eyes. Then, he looked at her with a cold smile. "Howren, what are you doing?" The moment her tongue was unlocked, Qin Ling Fei asked in a slightly panicked manner. "Who the hell are you? What is your relationship with the 100-change-old man?" Ignoring Qin Ling Fei's questioning, Yu Howren looked straight into her eyes and asked, "Howren, I am your fiancée Qin Ling Fei." Facing Yu Howren's interrogation, Qin Lingfei's eyes revealed an anxious look as she shouted, "No!" Facing Qin Lingfei's anxious cry, Yu Haoran shook his head and said, "You are not my fiancé. You just used a disguise technique to change your appearance to look like her. Haoran, what do I have to do for you to believe that I am your fiancé?" Her questioning tone revealed sadness, disappointment, and helplessness, which almost made Yu Haoran's heart weaken. Fortunately, his mental state cultivation, which was about to break through to the martial honorable realm, allowed him to quickly stabilize his state of mind. He then looked at Qin Lingfei with a sneer. "It seems like you won't give up until you see the coffin. You won't turn back until you hit the wall." Having said that, Yu Haoran took out a communication jade talisman from his storage ring and waved it at Qin Lingfei as he spoke. "This is the communication jade talisman that my fiancée gave me when I parted ways with her. I can contact her directly now to see if she has returned to the palace or if I have used a sealing technique to seal her in front of me. Mr. Yu, I think that my disguise technique has reached the acme of perfection. Even a peak third tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm powerhouse would not be able to see through the abnormality. How did you see through the flaw?" Qin Lingfei's expression changed slightly when she heard that he could directly contact the person in question. Then, the sadness in her eyes was replaced by indifference. She calmed down in an instant and asked in a cold tone, "If you want to know how I saw through the flaw in your disguise technique, I can. However, you have to answer my 2 questions first." After putting away the communication jade talisman, Yu Haoran took the initiative to make his request. Without waiting for Yu Haoran to ask, the woman who had turned into Qin Lingfei immediately answered, "My name is Mei. My master is the 100-face old man." 2 flaws. Seeing that the woman who called herself Mei was so straightforward, Yu Haoran did not have any requests or hide anything from her. "The first flaw is your scent. I, Yu Haoran, have a sensitivity to scent that surpasses that of exotic beasts. I can use my scent to track any corner within 1,000 miles. I can use my scent to identify anyone I see. The second flaw is your reaction. I've been engaged to Ling Fei for more than half a year. We've had a few chances to be alone with each other. Other than the final yin and yang fusion, we've basically done everything else that needs to be done. Therefore, when faced with my intimate actions, her reaction would not be stiff. Instead, she would respond more passionately. I understand now." Hearing the 2 flaws pointed out by Yu Haoran, Mei Er's eyes shone with confidence once again. "The flaws that you've discovered are not because my disguise technique is not good enough. It's because I made a mistake in choosing the character to disguise myself as." Speaking up to this point, Mei smiled at Yu Haoran as she spoke. "Yu Haoran, thank you for your guidance. You've allowed my 100-face mental cultivation method to break through the bottleneck and officially reach the realm of being able to do as I please." Chapter 11-17. Iyuan Pavilion, Practice Room. Not good. Hearing Mei Er's words of gratitude, Yu Haoran had a bad feeling. The natal magic weapon that appeared in his hand instantly pierced towards her heart. But the result was that the natal magic weapon directly pierced through Mei and appeared behind her. "Yu Haoran, I seem to have fallen in love with you. I hope that the next time we meet, something that should happen between a man and a woman. Perhaps through those things you will also fall in love with me." Just as Mei Er's illusory body was about to disappear, she left behind a provocation that caused Yu Haoran to burn with anger. However, just as Mei completely disappeared from the practice room, Yu Haoran, who was originally burning with anger, calmed down in an instant. He even revealed a trace of a proud smile on his face. A drop of blood appeared on his outstretched left palm. Then, he took out a pill bottle from his storage ring. After collecting the drop of blood from his palm into the pill bottle, Yu Haoran turned his head and instructed his second doppelganger. Brother Ran, the two brats outside Yuan Pavilion are direct descendants of the Gu Liang clan. I'll have to trouble you to use the soul-searching technique to search their memories and see the true heritage of the Gu Liang clan. Got it. Nodding his head, his second doppelganger directly left the practice room and brought the two youths of the Gu Liang clan back to the practice room. Then, he used the soul-searching technique to start reading their memories. Yu Haoran directly bent his knees and sat cross-legged. Then, his mind touched the imprint in his knowledge sea, and his body directly entered the victor in his knowledge sea. Stepping out of the hall on the first floor of the victor, his body appeared in his knowledge sea. Looking up at the victor in front of him, Yu Haoran took out a pill bottle containing pills from his storage ring. After pouring out a pill, he directly flicked it towards the victor. Feeling the exuberant vitality contained in the pill, the top of the Victor Pagoda immediately formed a strong suction force and directly absorbed the pill into the pagoda. After waiting for about a minute, there was no sign of Thaling waking up. Yu Haoran poured out the second pill and flicked it at Victor. Although Victor's aura had become stronger after fusing with the second pill, the Thaling still showed no signs of waking up. Without any hesitation, he poured out the third pill and threw it at Victor. After Victor fused with the third pill that contained exuberant vitality, not only did his aura become stronger, but a special energy fluctuation also came from Victor's body. Along with the special energy fluctuations, a terrifying aura that caused countless storms to roll up in the sea of consciousness slowly rose from within Victor. Feeling that familiar and terrifying aura, Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and at the same time, a look of joy and excitement appeared on his face. After the terrifying aura reached its peak, it quickly fell back down. At the same time, the door of Victor, which automatically went into seclusion, slowly opened. Soon after, a middle-aged man of about 40 years old with a dignified appearance and gentle eyes walked out of the Victor. Thaling. Looking at the middle-aged man with a gentle smile on his face, Yu Haoran greeted him with a smile. Not bad. Walking to Yu Haoran's side, Thaling inspected him from head to toe and sincerely praised him. It seems that while I was asleep, you didn't relax your cultivation. Let's talk. Pointing at the void in front of the sea of consciousness, Yu Haoran invited him. Sure. Nodding his head, Thaling walked to the sea of consciousness and said with a smile. It just so happens that I also want to know what you experienced while I was asleep. After sitting cross-legged facing each other, Yu Haoran began to talk about everything he experienced while Thaling was asleep. After hearing that Yu Haoran had successfully comprehended the dual laws of life and death by breaking through to the martial saint realm, Thaling nodded his head and praised him with gratification. Actually, when I was about to fall asleep, I had a feeling that with your potential and comprehension, as well as your own opportunities, you would definitely be able to comprehend the dual laws of life and death. However, when he heard that Yu Haoran had encountered the mysterious yellow saber and Li Dongyun in the cave of Miao Tsangshui, Thaling couldn't help but ask with a sudden change in expression. Yu Haoran, did you expose your whereabouts in front of the mysterious yellow saber? Did you leak the aura of the victor? After shaking his head and explaining that he had been completely sealed by the Miao Tsangshui and had only used his divine sense to observe the battle between Li Dongyun and the Miao Tsangshui, Yu Haoran looked straight into Thaling's eyes and asked with an extremely solemn expression. Thaling, what is your ultimate goal in staying in my sea of consciousness? In the face of Yu Haoran's solemn interrogation, Thaling didn't answer immediately. He just slowly closed his eyes. After closing his eyes in silence for nearly 10 minutes, Thaling opened his eyes again and asked with an equally solemn expression. Yu Haoran, did you discover that the Thaling of the mysterious yellow saber was absorbing a large amount of the host's vitality? That's right. Yu Haoran nodded and said without hiding anything. According to my understanding of Li Dongyun in my previous life, and then combined with the changes in my own strength after my rebirth, I didn't see any of the benefits Li Dongyun received after his reincarnation. To say something too arrogant, don't think that his background and opportunities are better than mine. Give me a year and I can easily kill him. Alas! After hearing Yu Haoran's honest answer, Thaling sighed and said with a complicated expression, Yu Haoran, I'm different from the mysterious yellow saber. To be more precise, with the help of the power of the demon god's ancient tomb's self-destruction, we're different from each other. The mysterious yellow saber kills too much. In order to recover its body, it will do anything, even if the host's soul is destroyed. The void mirror is cunning and suspicious. Although it won't hurt the host, it will never selflessly help the host become stronger. The Xianyuan sword is very arrogant. Although it will do its best to help the host become stronger, after the host's injuries have recovered to a certain extent, it will choose to leave the host and find someone in this world who is truly worthy of it. The heaven refining pot is selfish and extremely ambitious. After the host becomes strong to a certain extent, it will use its unique refining ability to replace the host as the host's master. Thaling, what about you? Hearing Thaling's evaluation of the 4 magic tools that had successfully reincarnated with the help of the host during the demon god's ancient tomb's explosion, Yu Haoran asked nervously. Mutual benefit. Through the space of the Sea of Consciousness, Thaling looked at the world outside the Sea of Consciousness with a hint of longing in his eyes. In the long years, I've experienced too much of the world's gratitude and resentment. I've seen countless life and death separations. My heart is full of curiosity and yearning for the various emotions that human beings have. Speaking of this, Thaling withdrew his gaze from the Sea of Consciousness and said to Yu Haoran with excitement in his eyes. Chapter 11:18. In the Knowledge Sea. In that case, Thaling, you also want to possess my body and obtain a new life through the means of reincarnation. Looking at Thaling, who could not hide the excitement in his eyes, Yu Haoran's face instantly became gloomy. He forcefully suppressed the murderous aura in his heart and asked with gritted teeth, No, don't misunderstand, I will not obtain a new life through the means of reincarnation. Feeling the murderous aura surging in Yu Haoran's body, Thaling hurriedly shook his head in denial and asked seriously, Yu Haoran, you have explored so many ancient, medieval, and recent ruins in your previous life. I wonder if you have heard of the origins of the 5 elements? After getting Thaling's firm denial, the murderous aura surging in Yu Haoran's heart weakened slightly. After hearing him mention the origins of the 5 elements, he thought carefully for a while, then nodded and said, The origins of the 5 elements, born from yin and yang, follows the beginning of martial arts, which gives birth to 1, 1 gives birth to 2, 2 gives birth to 3, and 3 gives birth to all things. You can say that the origins of the 5 elements are the foundation of the entire world. That's right. Nodding in agreement with Yu Haoran's evaluation of the origins of the 5 elements, Thaling said excitedly, Yu Haoran, if your cultivation can break through the martial god realm, then you can use a special power to help me isolate the victor from my body. If I can obtain the energy of the origins of the 5 elements, then I can use the energy of the origins of the 5 elements to reconstruct my body and completely break away from my identity as Thaling and have a new life. After hearing the pagoda spirit reveal the true purpose of reincarnation, Yu Haoran felt as though a huge rock had been lifted off his chest. Then, he remembered that since he met Thaling, it had always been Thaling who did his best to help him. Now, Thaling already had a life goal to strive for, so he should do his best to help him achieve his wish. Therefore, he closed his eyes and carefully recalled the experiences of his previous life. Finally, he thought of the whereabouts of one of the origin energies. Thaling, I know that in the depths of the death swamp, there seems to be an immortal wood vine that contains wood origin energy. Yu Haoran, are you telling the truth? Just as Yu Haoran said that he needed the energy of the 5 elements to reconstruct his body, Yuhauran directly gave him the whereabouts of one of the source energies. For a moment, Thaling found it hard to believe that a pie had fallen from the sky. In my previous life, when I was under the lead of the Void Spirit Mouse and escaped the pursuit of the natives of the Swamp of Death, I once saw a mature immortal wood vine in the sacred land of the natives. Thaling, I believe that the origin of wood contained within the matured immortal wood vine should be able to satisfy the energy you need to reconstruct your body. Yuhauran explained in detail how he had seen the immortal wood vine in his previous life in order to dispel the doubts in Thaling's heart. After receiving Yuhauran's confirmation, Thaling excitedly stood up and started to walk in circles around the original victor. After walking a total of 9 circles, he finally calmed down the excited emotions in his heart. When he once again sat cross-legged in front of Yuhauran, Thaling solemnly expressed his thanks. Waving his hand, indicating that Thaling didn't need to be polite, Yuhauran continued to talk about his origins. After hearing that he had obtained the void pill condensation technique, Fushi's 8 trigrams diagram, and the incomplete heavenly cycle star formation from Miao Tsangshui, Thaling's expression gradually became serious. Thaling, do you think that the opportunities that Miao Tsangshui obtained, as well as the various methods that he used the Nirvana pill, are they related to the arrangements of the heavenly Tao? Raising his head to look at Thaling, Yuhauran asked the second question that had been accumulating in his heart. More accurately speaking, is it because of the interference of the heavenly Tao? Looking at Yuhauran with deep meaning, Thaling silently nodded his head, acknowledging his previous conjecture. However, Thaling didn't reveal any more secrets about the heavenly Tao. Regarding this, Yuhauran knew that Thaling might have a certain degree of fear towards the heavenly Tao and wasn't willing to discuss too much about the heavenly Tao in order to avoid attracting the attention of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, he took the initiative to change the topic about the heavenly Tao and continued to talk about his experiences during this period of time. Not good. When he heard Yuhauran mention that he had admitted in front of everyone that he could refine the supreme Weiren pill, Thaling's expression suddenly changed and he cried out involuntarily. "Thaling, what's wrong?" Yuhauran immediately asked nervously. Without answering Yuhauran's question, Thaling asked with a serious expression, "Yuhauran, how long has it been since you admitted in front of everyone that you could refine the supreme Weiren pill?" After pondering for a moment, Yuhauran replied, "About 20 days." After hearing the time given by Yuhauran, Thaling immediately got up and returned to the victor. 3 minutes later, Thaling, who had returned in front of him, reminded him with a serious expression. "Yuhauran, 3 days. You can only stay here for 3 days at most before you have to leave the Twin Bull Mountain. Thaling, it doesn't matter if you leave the Twin Bull Mountain in 3 days or right now. However, you have to give me a reason for leaving." Thaling's strange behavior just now made Yuhauran even more suspicious. At the same time, he could not help but ask directly. "The Blue Dragon clan that has inherited the bloodline of the 4 guardian beasts from the ancient times will send enforcers to kill you in 4 days to 10 days, Thaling said with a serious expression. After hearing Thaling's explanation, Yuhauran immediately questioned him in dissatisfaction. Why? Not only did he not have any grudges with the Blue Dragon clan, but they had also never really come into contact with each other. Yet, they sent enforcers to kill him. "Because your ability to refine the supreme Weiren pill has already broken the rules set by the 4 guardian clans," Thaling said word by word. "Thaling, I don't understand. Since ancient times, there were definitely more than 100 alchemy grandmasters who could refine the supreme Weiren pill, if not more than 1,000. Why were those alchemy grandmasters not pursued by the 4 guardian clans?" "Because the 4 guardian clans need to gather all their strength to complete a plan that they have been preparing since ancient times. Now, the time for them to execute their plan is getting closer and closer. They will definitely not allow any existence that breaks the rules." Thaling sighed and asked after explaining to this point. "Yuhauran, think carefully. In the past 10,000 years, have there been any records or rumors of alchemy grandmasters refining the supreme Weiran pill in the Tianxian continent? He closed his eyes and thought carefully for a while. Cold sweat gradually appeared on his forehead. This was because he suddenly remembered that when his first clone accepted the inheritance of the alchemy grandmaster in the Medicine Valley, he had once said that the alchemy grandmaster was suddenly assassinated by a group of black-clothed people when he successfully broke through to the alchemy emperor realm. Chapter 11:19. In his mind. Thaling, do I have to hide from the Blue Dragon clan's law enforcers like a stray dog in the future? Yuhauran asked unwillingly after opening his eyes again. Yuhauran, don't worry too much. Thaling comforted him while shaking his head. According to my understanding of the 4 great guardian clans and the heavenly law, the more perfect the heavenly law is, the more restrictions it has on the 4 great guardian clans. As long as you can avoid the law enforcers this time, the 4 great guardian clans won't be able to send law enforcers to kill you in the next 3 to 5 years. Phew! After hearing Thaling's comforting words, Yuhauran secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time, a tyrannical emotion rose in his heart. Since he had been recognized as a rule-breaker by the 4 great guardian clans, then in the future, they would definitely fight to the death. If he could eliminate the law enforcers who came to kill him, then he could weaken the strength of the Blue Dragon clan, and also give himself more time to improve his cultivation and strength. Thinking of this, Yuhauran asked, Thaling, the law enforcers sent by the Blue Dragon clan, under normal circumstances, how many would there be, and how strong would they be? Yuhauran, what do you want to do? Thaling, who had a bad feeling, immediately asked. If their strength is within the range of what you and I can bear, I plan to eliminate the law enforcers of the Blue Dragon clan. Yuhauran said with a murderous look. Although he was shocked by Yuhauran's audacious idea, Thaling suddenly had the same idea as Yuhauran when he considered that he had successfully recovered the Emperor Wu's soul body and could use about 1% of the victor's strength. Yuhauran, according to my understanding of the Blue Dragon clan, under normal circumstances, they would not send out a martial saint to deal with a young genius like you. However, considering your shocking talent in alchemy, it's possible that you'll attract some strong cultivators to follow you. They'll definitely send a peak 3rd tribulation quasi-martial saint. There should be 2 or 3 of them. Thaling, if I use the body possession technique, can I kill a peak 3rd tribulation quasi-martial venerable? Yuhauran immediately asked after hearing Thaling's estimation of the strength and number of enforcers dispatched by the Blue Dragon family. If I were to control your body and use the laws, I would be able to easily kill a martial saint. Thaling's confidence in his own strength caused Yuhauran to reveal an uncontrollable excitement on his face. After all, he could even kill a peak martial saint. Whether it was the following exploration of the ruins or dealing with the assassination of the Yushu temple, he would be able to face it calmly. However, his excitement did not last long. As Thaling's tone changed, he instantly fell to the bottom. But I can't deal with the enforcers sent by the Blue Dragon family. Why? Yuhauran asked in disbelief. Because the Black Tortoise family of the 4 great guardian families is proficient in the art of innate divination. If I were to kill the enforcers, it would definitely alarm the Black Tortoise family's sleeping ancestor. When he mentioned the Black Tortoise family's ancestor, Thaling's eyes flashed with a hint of fear as he continued. If the ancestors of the 4 great guardian families know that I, Thaling, have reappeared, then they would rather postpone the plan that they have been preparing for tens of millions of years to get my body as a victor. Thaling, if even you can't do it, then I can only temporarily avoid the pursuit of the enforcers. Yuhauran said helplessly after hearing Thaling's reason. After all, he had just experienced the power of a peak 3rd tribulation quasi-martial honorable in the black market auction. Although it seemed that he had blocked the sneak attack of the hundred-faced old man and did not suffer any serious injuries, the hundred-faced old man did not really use all of his strength. This was because in order to ensure the success of the sneak attack, he could not mobilize all of his origin power and soul power in advance, nor could he use the fusion of origin power, soul power, and the power of the laws. Therefore, Yuhauran was very clear that he was definitely not a match for a peak martial saint of the Third Tribulation. Moreover, as the Blue Dragon family that could set the rules of the Tianxian continent, not only would the strength of the enforcers be more powerful, but the power of the laws that they had comprehended and the inherited martial skills that they had mastered would probably be far stronger than the hundred-faced old man, Yuhauran. Although I can't directly deal with the Blue Dragon family's enforcers, I can use the formation to increase your combat power. Faced with Yuhauran's retreat, Thowling encouraged him with full confidence. As long as the enforcers sent by the Blue Dragon family are not peerless martial saints, then I have the confidence to make them unable to return. Formation. After hearing Thowling mention the help of the formation, Yuhauran immediately thought of the blood oath of destiny between himself and the Gu Liang family. Suddenly, an extremely daring idea emerged in his heart. A risky plan to use the Heavenly Ways rules to kill the enforcers and the Gu Liang family. After closing his eyes and carefully considering the feasibility of the plan, Yuhauran told Thowling his idea and plan. After hearing Yuhauran's idea and plan, Thowling thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Yuhauran, with the special relationship between the four great guardian families and the Heavenly Ways rules. If the enforcers of the Blue Dragon family were to attack you while you were completing the Blood Oath of Destiny, they would definitely attract the wrath of the Heavenly Ways rules. If you use the wrath of the Heavenly Ways rules to break the seal in the body of the Gu Liang family's martial saint, you would also attract the wrath of the Heavenly Ways rules. After all, the current environment still does not allow the appearance of power that exceeds the martial saint realm. Seeing that his plan had received Thowling's approval, Yuhauran was wild with joy and quickly checked his collection. After all, if he wanted to break the seal in the body of the Gu Liang family's martial saint when the wrath of the Heavenly Ways rules came against the Blue Dragon family's enforcers, he would have to use some special means. In his previous life, when he was exploring the remains of the near-ancient era, he had obtained a pill that could greatly increase one's strength in a short period of time. This pill was called the blood pill. It was a pill that could rapidly increase one's strength without any side effect. It was different from ordinary pills that could increase one's strength. Using the blood pill to increase one's strength did not require consumption. As long as one was in the sea of blood formed after the blood pill exploded, one's strength would uncontrollably increase by several times, or even dozens of times. Chapter 11:20. In the Sea of Consciousness. After careful inspection, Yuhauran found that among the 9 herbs that could be used to refine the blood pill, he still lacked a rank 4 blood soul grass. Thinking that the blood soul grass was not a rare spirit grass, he immediately took out a blank jade slip, and then marked the shape and characteristics of the blood soul grass in the jade slip. Then, he sent the jade slip out of the sea of consciousness and into the hands of the second doppelganger. "Brother Ran, I'll have to trouble you to hand this jade slip to Shin Jinwen. Tell him, no matter what method he uses, no matter how much he has to pay, he must help me find the spirit grass recorded in the jade slip within 3 days." "Okay, I got it." Nodding, the second doppelganger turned and left the cultivation room. After the second doppelganger left, Yuhauran looked at Thowling and asked the question that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time. "Pagoda spirit, is my reincarnation real, or is it just a dream?" "Yuhauran, what do you mean?" Thowling frowned slightly and asked puzzledly. "In my previous life, until I took the risk to break into the demon god's ancient tomb, no matter whether it was known or heard, the highest cultivation was only at the peak of the 9th level martial saint. Experts of the martial saint realm, the peerless experts of the martial saint realm, and the peerless experts of the Emperor Wu realm only existed in legends. In this life, the experts that I know and heard of are not only dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than in my previous life, but the peerless experts of the martial saint realm and the peerless experts of the Emperor Wu realm have also appeared. Speaking of this, Yu Haoran's eyes showed a trace of confusion and asked, "Even if the environment of the previous life and this life has changed, the difference in cultivation and strength is too big. Thaling, this makes me feel like I am in a dream, as if everything that is happening now is fake and illusory." So that's how it is. After hearing Yu Haoran speak about the confusion in his heart, Thaling came to a sudden realization and praised with a satisfied smile on his face. Yu Haoran, the fact that you can notice this difference means that you already have the opportunity to comprehend the laws of truth, falsehood, void, and reality. After the fusion of the true, false, void, and corporeal laws, one will be able to obtain the void-shattering light that contains the law of destruction. In the face of Ta Cheng's praise and the possibility of comprehending 4 different laws, Yu Haoran didn't seem happy or excited at all. He only wanted to know whether he was living in reality or in a dream. This was also the main reason why his state of mind was unable to break through to the martial highness realm. Yu Haoran, you are now 100% living in the real world. Seeing that Yu Haoran was still depressed, Thaling knew that he was now confused by the confusion in his heart, and it would be difficult for him to break free with his own strength. Therefore, Thaling put away the smile on his face and said with a certain tone. Thaling's affirmative answer made Yu Haoran's confusion gradually recover a trace of clarity. However, the real reason that troubled him was the huge gap between the strength of the cultivators in his previous and current life. Seeing the confusion in Yu Haoran's eyes and the complete clarity of the future, Thaling knew that if he didn't truly solve the doubts in his heart, his achievements in this life would probably stop at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint. In order to avoid the tragic fate of being devoured by the mysterious yellow saber and the heaven-refining flask in the future, and also to reconstruct a perfect body and obtain a new life, Thaling could only reveal the secret that he had always been unwilling to touch. Yu Haoran, do you know when your reincarnation started? Of course, it started when I woke up from my serious injuries. Yu Haoran replied in confusion. No. Shaking his head, Thaling took a deep breath and said, "Actually, the moment you were born, you had already completed the process of reincarnation. However, your memories of your previous life were always blocked by the power of the heavenly law, causing you to be unable to feel the feeling of being reborn. Until the consciousness that was born in your body died due to serious injuries, the power of the heavenly law disappeared. Only then did you truly feel that you had been reborn. Thaling, even if my reincarnation started from the moment I was born, it has only been 17 or 18 years since my memories of my previous life awakened." Hearing Thaling's explanation of the time of his reincarnation, Yu Haoran still couldn't figure it out and asked, 17 or 18 years. Even if it was the reincarnation of an immortal god, the difference in strength between the previous life and the current life wouldn't be so great. Moreover, it's not just one person. It's everyone in the profound sky continent. Your suspicions are not wrong. Nodding, Thaling stood up and looked at the world outside the sea of consciousness. He said with a sigh, "As an ancient tomb that can bury gods and demons, the demon god's ancient tomb contains a terrifying power that even the heavenly law doesn't dare to easily resist." After sighing, Thaling turned to look at Yu Haoran and asked, "Yu Haoran, since your reincarnation, have you heard anyone mention the demon god's ancient tomb?" His eyes suddenly widened. Yu Haoran suddenly realized that he had overlooked an important problem. After his reincarnation, not only did he not hear anyone mention the demon god's ancient tomb, but he also didn't find any records of the demon god's ancient tomb in the few sect's treasure vaults that he had searched. This was completely different from the experience of his previous life. In his previous life, even in the ancient books of the sects, there was more or less some information about the demon god's ancient demon. In your previous life, after the demon god's ancient tomb exploded, the unimaginable terrifying power not only allowed you and me to successfully reincarnate, but also allowed all the living beings in the entire profound sky continent to benefit from that power. And this is the real reason why you are puzzled. Boom! As Thaling solved the doubts that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time, the bottleneck that had been preventing him from breaking through his mental state cultivation was immediately broken through by a clear power. Accompanied by a low thunder roar from Yuhauran's body, a mysterious power fluctuation slowly rose from his body. My mental state cultivation has broken through to the martial venerable realm. Hearing the deep thunder roar coming from Yuhauran's body and seeing a calming power vibration rising from Yuhauran's body, the tower spirit said to itself in surprise. There are 5 key factors to breaking through to the martial venerable realm: mental state, physical body, soul power, primary energy, and law comprehension. Mental state, Yuhauran has successfully broken through. Physical body, with the body of the witch ancestor and the inheritance of the memories of the 12 ancient witches, as long as he calms his heart and carefully feels the cultivation comprehension of the ancient witch ancestor, he will be able to break through to the martial venerable realm in 3 months to half a year. Soul power, according to the large number of soul stones that Yuhauran obtained from the bottom of the mirror lake, as long as he uses the formation to extract soul power to assist his cultivation, he will be able to break through to the martial venerable realm in 4 months to 8 months. Primary energy, with the high-grade spirit stones that Yuhauran has stored and more than 10 spiritual veins, he will be able to break through to the martial venerable realm in half a year. Chapter 11:21. In his knowledge see. Thinking of the 5 key factors to breaking through to the martial honorable realm, and the fact that Yuhauran could break through 4 of them in half a year, Thaling's heart was filled with uncontrollable joy. This was because the faster Yuhauran's cultivation improved, the stronger he became, the faster he could explore the various ruins and forbidden areas, and then help him find the 5 elemental origins that could reconstruct his physical body. As the energy fluctuation that could calm one's mind gradually disappeared, Yuhauran slowly opened his eyes. His expression was as calm as water, and there was no drastic change in his emotions because his mental state cultivation had successfully broken through to the martial honorable realm. Yuhauran, do you know what you just experienced? Yuhauran's overly calm reaction made Thaling somewhat unable to accept it. Of course I know. Nodding, Yuhauran said in a flat tone. My mental state cultivation has broken through to the martial honorable realm. If that's the case, then why aren't you excited at all? Thaling asked puzzledly. Thaling, among the 5 factors for breaking through to the martial honorable realm, whether it's the physical body, origin power, or soul power, I'm confident that I can break through within half a year. If I use Victor's ability to accelerate time, I can even shorten the time to break through to half. But the comprehension of the dual laws of life and death. Speaking of this, Yuhauran could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Not to mention half a year, I'll be satisfied if I can reach the complete realm in 10 or even 20 years. So you're worried about the difficulty of comprehending the dual laws of life and death. After hearing Yuhauran's explanation, Thaling nodded in agreement, and a relaxed smile appeared on his face as he teased. Yuhauran, do you want to advance your law of life and law of death to the complete realm in the shortest time possible? Thaling, aren't you talking nonsense? Hearing the hint of ridicule in Thaling's tone, Yuhauran was overjoyed, but he couldn't help but roll his eyes and complain. If I can advance the laws of life and death to perfection in the shortest amount of time possible, then I can borrow the Hidden Dragon providence obtained from the Hidden Dragon ranking competition to break through the martial honorable realm in one go and become a peerless expert that stands tall in the profound sky continent. Yu Haoran, after solving the crisis of the Blue Dragon clan's enforcers and the blood oath with the Guliang clan, I'll bring you to a special place. After hearing Yu Haoran's plan, or rather, his ambition, Thaling immediately stopped teasing him and reminded him with a solemn expression. That special place can allow your law of life and law of death to reach perfection. Where? Yu Haoran hurriedly asked. It's a secret for now. Thaling replied with a look of ridicule. Originally, he wanted to use the agreement that they couldn't keep secrets before Thaling went into hibernation to force him to reveal the specific location. However, his second clone, who had returned to the training room, used telepathy to tell him that someone had come to visit. Glaring at Thaling with dissatisfaction, Yu Haoran returned to the training room through the imprint in his sea of consciousness and received a jade scroll from his second clone. Pointing at the two young men whose life auras had completely disappeared, his second clone said, "The Jade Scroll contains detailed information about the Gu Liang clan from their memories. Brother Thaling, I'll have to trouble you." Yu Haoran nodded and thanked him as he put away the Jade Scroll in his hand. "I'll go have a chat with Thaling." With a wave of his hand, his second clone directly returned to his sea of consciousness. Looking at the door that he had smashed open, Yu Haoran shook his head apologetically and walked out of the training room. "Please come in." As he walked towards the pavilion, Yu Haoran gestured towards the courtyard door. As the courtyard door was pushed open, a middle-aged man walked in with an ingratiating smile. His appearance, clothes, temperament, and appearance were all very ordinary. "Yu Jihua greets Yu Zongshi." Sitting upright on a stone chair, Yu Haoran asked with a slight frown. "Yu Jihua, who are you? What business do you have with me?" Replying to the great grandmaster, "I come from the Zhou clan in the central region. On the orders of my master, I have a message for you." Yu Jihua replied with a smile. "Speak." It turned out to be the expert surnamed Zhou who had traded the ghost-faced flower with him. After hearing Yu Jihua's reply, Yu Haoran, whose doubts were all gone, nodded, indicating that the other party could state the purpose of his visit. 108 medicinal herbs for refining supreme Huazuan pill. My master will gather them in half a month. I hope that Yu Zongshi can prepare to open the furnace and refine the pill. Yu Jihua put away the smile on his face and solemnly reminded him. Being able to gather 108 medicinal herbs for refining supreme Huazuan pill in half a month? After hearing Yu Jihua's reminder, Yu Haoran couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Although the origin of the Zhou clan was very mysterious and their strength was very strong, not losing to the 7 top sects in the slightest, being able to gather 108 medicinal herbs in half a month, especially the 9-tailed dragon sunflower as the main ingredient, was enough to show that the Zhou clan's foundation was deep, far beyond his imagination. Go back and tell your master that I, Yu Haoran, will keep the promise of the original deal. Calming down the surprise in his heart, Yu Haoran replied with an indifferent expression. If that's the case, then I'll take my leave first. After receiving Yu Haoran's reply, Yu Jihua cupped his fists and gestured, then turned around and left Iyuan Pavilion. As the family that inherited the bloodline of Emperor Wu, the Gu Liang clan, one of the 3 hegemons of the southern region, was located in Leiling City. They were the master of the entire Leiling City, and were in charge of the life and death of millions of people in the city. Leiling City was bordered by the Ganges River to the west, the Qinglin mountain range to the north, and the fertile plains to the east. It was a feng shui treasure land that occupied the water and mountains. Looking at the dozen young experts of the Gu Liang clan guarding the southern gate of the city, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with a trace of cold light. After observing the situation around him, Yu Haoran hid behind a big tree in a flash. After changing his appearance and aura through the use of medicinal pills, he leisurely rushed to the southern gate of the city. "What's your name? Where are you from?" When Yu Haoran arrived in front of the city gate, he was immediately blocked by a young man in his 20s. The young man had a fierce expression as he shouted. "This old man's surname is Gue. I'm from Guangling City." Yu Haoran, who had disguised himself as a white-haired old man, looked disdainfully at the young man blocking him, and said arrogantly, "Could it be that you're from the Gue clan, one of the 4 great clans of Guangling City?" After hearing Yu Haoran's arrogant introduction, the young man immediately withdrew his fierce expression and asked with a slightly fawning expression, "What do you think?" Coldly looking at the young man, Yu Haoran replied with a question and then strode into the city. "Humph!" Seeing the white-haired old man ignore him and stride into the city, the young man from the Gu Liang clan snorted in displeasure and mocked to himself. Chapter 11:22. Leilang City. Yu Haoran felt a trace of admiration for the Gu Liang family's terrifying control over Leilang City as he looked at the hustle and bustle of the city, completely unaffected by the blood oath of fate. In his previous life, he had never been to Leilang City, so he wasn't clear about the layout of the city and the exact location of the Gu Liang family. Thus, he took out the jade slip containing the memories of the Gu Liang family's direct descendants through soul-searching and carefully read it with his mind. Through the records in the jade slip, Yu Haoran roughly familiarized himself with the situation of Leilang City and directly rushed to the Gu Liang family's mansion. It was different from the location of a normal family's mansion. The Gu Liang family's mansion wasn't located in the center of the city, but rather in the western district near the Ganges River, occupying the entire western district. Looking at the huge cluster of buildings before him, Yu Haoran couldn't help but sigh at the benefits of having a long inheritance. Thaling, according to the structure and location of the Gu Liang family's mansion, what kind of array do you think we should set up? Walking to the side of a green willow tree that wouldn't attract anyone's attention, Thaling reminded him in his consciousness. Emperor Wu's powerful mind quickly swept through the entire Gu Liang family's mansion. Thaling's eyes immediately revealed a trace of surprise. "Yu Haoran, it seems that the ancestor of the Gu Liang family once had a grandmaster proficient in the art of geomancy." "What do you mean?" Yu Haoran, who was also proficient in the art of innate divination and familiar with geomancy, immediately asked with interest. He knew that during his slumber, Yu Haoran had used Fushi's 8 trigrams to cultivate and become a powerful arcane master. Thus, Thaling was too lazy to explain too much. He directly used Emperor Wu's powerful mind to help him conceal the fluctuations of aura and indicated for him to observe by himself. Soaring into the sky above the Gu Liang family's mansion, he used his familiar geomancy to carefully observe the structure and layout of the entire mansion. Yu Haoran sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw the water of the Ganges River flowing through 9 different openings and into a man-made valley at the core of the mansion. 9 dragons surrounding the moon. That's right. After hearing Yu Haoran shout out the feng shui layout, the Thaling in the Sea of Consciousness nodded in agreement and further speculated. "Yu Haoran, it seems like the Gu Liang family is quite ambitious. They actually want to use the 9 dragons surround the moon to gather the destiny of a city and cultivate an almighty expert on the level of Emperor Wu." "No." In the face of Thaling's speculation and his own understanding of feng shui, Yu Haoran shook his head and gave a different opinion. "Thaling, I don't think the Gu Liang family wants to cultivate an almighty expert like Emperor Wu. Instead, they want to use the 9 dragons encircle the moon feng shui formation to extract the fate of millions of living beings in Leilang City and use it to restore the vitality of their ancestors." "Impossible." After hearing Yu Haoran's speculation, Thaling immediately shook his head and denied. To resurrect an almighty expert like Emperor Wu, not to mention gathering the fate of a city. Even gathering the fate of all living beings in the southern region is impossible. Thaling, if you use the huge amount of fate accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years and then integrate it with the vitality of millions of people, then is there a possibility of success? Yuhauran reminded with a cold smile. What do you mean? After hearing Yuhauran's reminder, Thaling's expression changed, and he immediately used the powerful divine sense of Emperor Wu to re-examine the layout of the entire Lei city. With the detailed observation of his divine sense, Thaling's expression gradually became gloomy. Especially after he took the risk of using the extreme divine sense of Emperor Wu to sneak into the man-made valley, his expression became even more gloomy. Yuhauran, your guess is correct. The Gu Liang family is indeed trying to extract the vitality of millions of people in Lei City to resurrect one of their ancestors, Emperor Wu, and a peak 9th grade martial revered ancestor. Afraid of attracting the attention of the Gu Liang family's martial venerable, the pagoda spirit took a full 5 seconds to suppress the strong murderous intent in its heart. Then, it gritted its teeth and confirmed. Pagoda spirit, think about it carefully. What kind of formation do we need to set up in order to completely destroy the Gu Liang family that has already fallen into the evil path? Compared to Thaling's anger, Yuhauran's reaction to the Gu Liang family's evil method of resurrecting their ancestors was very calm. This was because in his previous life, he had seen more than once and even personally experienced methods that were several times more evil than the Gu Liang family's. Golden Lock Bewitching Formation. Starlight 7 Slaughter Formation. Without any hesitation, the tower spirit gnashed its teeth as it spoke of the spirit formation it wanted to set up. After hearing the 2 formations that Thaling wanted to set up, Yuhauran could not help but exclaim in surprise. Thaling, I did not expect your hatred for the Gu Liang family to be so deep. Regardless of whether it was the Golden Lock Bewitching Formation or the Starlight 7 Slaughter Formation, they were all formations that could not be broken. If the Gu Liang family's evil plan had not truly angered Thaling, according to his personality, he would not have set up such a formation. Yuhauran, you continue to rise into the sky and hide in the clouds to adjust. My second clone and I will set up the formation. Thaling did not respond to Yuhauran's surprised question as he ordered without any hesitation. Okay. In response, Yuhauran did not have any objections and continued to rise into the sky. When he was 10,000 meters above the Gu Liang family, he used his divine sense to gather a few clouds and then sat cross-legged on the clouds to adjust his breathing. Thaling used Emperor Wu's powerful divine sense to help his second clone conceal the fluctuation of his aura and began to guide him on how to set up the Golden Lock Bewitching Formation and the Starlight 7 Slaughter Formation. After all, the annihilation of the Gu Liang family was under the witness of the heavenly law. Yuhauran had made a blood oath that Thaling could not interfere in the battle between the 2 parties. Just as Thaling was guiding his second clone to set up the formation, in a courtyard next to the Gu Liang family's valley, the Gu Liang family's patriarch, Gu Liang Mingquan, 9 quasi-martial honorable elders, and 15 quasi-martial honorable hall masters were all standing in the courtyard. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on an early first-grade martial saint in a starlight robe, a middle-aged man in his 40s. At this moment, the middle-aged man's eyes were tightly shut and his left hand was holding a palm-sized turtle shell. When the middle-aged man slowly opened his eyes, Gu Liang Mingquan immediately asked, Yushan, what's the result of the divination? Patriarch, Yuhauran is also a powerful arcane master proficient in divination. He can interfere with and conceal his aura. Shaking his head, Gu Liang Yushan replied with a tired expression. Chapter 11:23. Gu Liang Clan, in the mansion. Yushan, no matter what, Yuhauran is a rare genius in Tianxian continent. Being able to deduce his exact whereabouts is enough to prove your achievements in Formula Dao cultivation. Seeing Gu Liang Yushan's exhausted expression, Patriarch Gu Liang Yangchuan comforted him with a gentle expression. As for how to find out Yu Haoran's exact location and complete the blood oath of the heavenly Tao, leave this to me. You can go and rest first. Patriarch elders, Yute will take his leave first. After hearing Gu Liang Minchuan's comforting and instructions, Gu Liang Yushan stopped his cultivation and got up. He then excused himself to everyone present and dragged his exhausted body out of the courtyard. Just now, in order to be able to deduce Yu Haoran's exact whereabouts and not show his incompetence in front of the Patriarch, Gu Liang Yushan had secretly overdrawn nearly 100 years of his life force. 100 years of life force could be said to be an unbearable loss for Gu Liang Yushan, who only had a lifespan of 1,000 years. This was also the main reason why he looked so exhausted. After Gu Liang Yushan left the courtyard, the smile on Gu Liang Minchuan's face was immediately replaced by seriousness. He looked at everyone in front of him and growled. Elders and hall masters, Yu Haoran has killed his way into Leilang City. The real danger of our Gu Liang clan has arrived. What do you think we should do next? Patriarch, why don't we wake up Ancestor Greathorde in advance and let him use the divine sense of a martial venerable to track down Yu Haoran's exact location? After hearing Gu Liang Minchuan's interrogation, 7th Elder Gu Liang Zhichuan, who was in charge of the clan's intelligence, immediately suggested. No. Before Gu Liang Minquan, the 3rd Elder Gu Liang Qingli, who was in charge of the clan's punishment, immediately objected. Patriarch, Ancestor Greathorde's lifespan has reached its limit. If we wake him up now, it will not be suitable for the environmental restrictions of the birth of a martial venerable. It will directly reduce his lifespan by 2/3. At most, he will only be able to live until the end of the Southern Region Hidden Dragon rankings. Could it be that you have the heart to let an ancestor who used the secret method of Gui Shi to survive for 10,000 years leave without a trace before he has even shown his true power as a martial venerable? At this point, Gu Liang Qingli glanced at the 7th Elder and suggested with a sinister smile. Patriarch, not only is old ancestor Li Jun stronger, but his lifespan is also nearly 200 years longer than old ancestor Yen Jun. According to this elder's opinion, why don't we awaken Ancestor Li Jun and let him use the divine sense of a martial venerable to track down and kill Yu Haoran who is hiding in the city? Gu Liang Qingli, what do you mean by that? Gu Liang Zhichuan immediately turned hostile after hearing the 3rd Elder's sinister suggestion. Gu Liang Zhichuan, what did you mean by that? Faced with the 7th Elder's question, Gu Liang Qingli also turned hostile and shouted back. Old ancestor Yen Jun was the direct ancestor of the 3rd Elder, and old ancestor Li Jun was the direct ancestor of the 7th Elder. Although for the sake of the ancestors' lifespan, not wanting them to awaken before the rules of the heavenly Tao were completely perfected was reasonable and showed their filial piety, in the face of the threat of extermination, they were still calculating their gains and losses. This made Gu Liang Minquan, the Patriarch, very disappointed and angry. Enough! Gu Liang Minquan shouted angrily as he watched the quarrel between the 3rd Elder and the 7th Elder, who were about to kill each other at any time. Then, he looked at the 1st Elder and saw a trace of ruthlessness flashing in the 1st Elder's eyes. The idea in his heart immediately became firm. 3rd Elder, 7th Elder, as I said just now, Yu Haoran is a monstrous all-rounder that is rarely seen in 10,000 years. Not only is his martial arts outstanding, but he is also proficient in alchemy, formation, and Formula Dao. He also has many trump cards in his hands. Gu Liang Minchuan's fierce gaze swept across the 3rd Elder and the 7th Elder as he ordered unquestionably. In order to successfully find and kill Yu Haoran, I have decided to awaken both old ancestors Yen Jun and Li Jun at the same time. After hearing Gu Liang Minchuan's decision, A look of reluctance immediately appeared in the eyes of the third elder and the seventh elder. But after seeing the coldness in Gu Liang Mingchuan's eyes, they could only reluctantly nod in agreement when they thought of the strongest ancestor who was sleeping in the clan. Since the two elders have no objections, then hurry up and wake up the two ancestors. Ignoring the reluctance in the eyes of the third elder and the seventh elder, Gu Liang Mingquan immediately ordered. Looking at the two elders who turned to leave the courtyard, Gu Liang Mingquan looked back at the crowd coldly and said in a serious tone, "The two ancestors who have been sleeping for 10,000 years are about to reach the end of their lifespan. In order to let them live longer, try not to disturb them if possible." At this point, Gu Liang Mingchuan's tone changed and he suddenly raised his voice to order. "So, immediately take your confidants who are martial emperors and martial sages and search the entire city for Yu Haoran's whereabouts. Tell your confidants that if they can release the whereabouts of Yu Haoran, I will reward them handsomely. If they can kill Yu Haoran, I will not only reward them handsomely, but I will also let the three old ancestors who are martial venerables personally guide them in their cultivation so that they will have the hope of breaking through to the martial venerable realm." "Yes, sir." In the face of Gu Liang Mingchuan's promise, the elders and hall masters did not show the slightest excitement. After listlessly responding to the order, they turned and left the courtyard. "Have you thought it through, Patriarch?" The first elder, the only one who did not leave the courtyard, stepped to Gu Liang Mingchuan's side and asked hesitantly. "Uncle, I have already thought it through." Nodding heavily, Gu Liang Mingquan said with great annoyance. Over the years, the third elders and the seventh elders factions have relied on the two old ancestors who are in deep slumber to not only seize more and more resources, but also have the ambition to compete for the throne. Pointing to the elders and hall masters who were not in high spirits, Gu Liang Mingquan said with a strong murderous look in his eyes. "Look at these elders and hall masters who have been roped in. They are now only thinking about their own selfish interests. They don't care about the life and death of the family at all." Taking a deep breath, Gu Liang Mingquan looked at the first elder and continued with a sneer on his face. "The blood oath Yu Haoran made under the rules of the heavenly Tao is a disaster for our Gu Liang clan, but it is also a chance for a phoenix to be reborn from the ashes. As long as we awaken the two old ancestors, Great Horde and Li Jun, regardless of whether the last two old ancestors take action or not, they will only have about half a year to live at most. As long as Great Horde and Li Jun die, I will make everyone in the third elders and the seventh elders factions disappear and completely eliminate the hidden dangers for the family." Chapter 11:24. In the mansion of the Gu Liang family. He understood Gu Liang Mingchuan's painstaking efforts for the development of the family, but the first elder was more worried about the other ancestor who was in a deep sleep. Although that ancestor was nominally an ancestor of their line, the first elder knew very well that they were not as close as imagined due to the gap of more than 10 generations. Moreover, Ancestor Daoqing was the descendant of Ancestor Great Horde and Ancestor Li Jun, so the relationship between them was far better than the direct descendants. Therefore, the first elder was worried that after Ancestor Daoqing woke up, he would blame Gu Liang Mingquan for the departure of the two elders at the same time. "Don't worry, first uncle, because Ancestor Daoqing will never wake up." Hearing the first elder's worry, Gu Liang Mingquan said with a slightly ferocious expression, "Don't say that Ancestor Daoqing will never wake up. If Ancestor Great Horde and Ancestor Li Jun survive the Hidden Dragon rankings, then they will contribute the last bit of strength in their lives to the true rise of the Gu Liang family, just like Ancestor Daoqing." "Mingquan, you're thinking." Looking at the ferocious expression and excited tone of Gu Liang Mingquan, a crazy idea flashed through the first elder's mind. "You're right, first uncle." The first elder's surprised tone and a trace of understanding flashed across his face, letting Gu Liang Mingquan know that the first elder had guessed his thoughts, so he did not hide anything. According to Yushan's calculation using the innate divination technique, the moment the 5 regions' hidden dragon rankings ends, the heavenly Tao will be completely perfected. At that time, the environment of heaven and earth will gradually be suitable for the birth of peerless experts of the martial Venerable Realm and Emperor Wu Realm experts. Speaking of this, Gu Liang Mingxuan's face revealed a crazy expression. The moment the 5 regions' hidden dragon rankings ends, I will activate the blood sacrifice technique, together with the 3 ancestors and the millions of living beings in the entire Lei city, to resurrect the ancestor who founded our Gu Liang family. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the madness in his heart, Gu Liang Mingquan said excitedly to the first elder. First uncle, if we have the Emperor Wu Realm ancestors' protection and guidance, not only can you and I break through the martial Venerable Realm more easily, but we also have a great chance of becoming Emperor Realm expert. After all, my ancestor was a quasi-god who almost broke through to the martial god realm. Mingquan, do it boldly and at ease. First uncle will always support and help you. The first elder also felt joy in his heart as he excitedly encouraged Mingquan. Yu Haoran, it seems like your conjecture is correct. The Gu Liang clan is planning to use the blood sacrifice of millions of lives in Lei City to revive the founder of the Gu Liang clan, Emperor Wu. While instructing his second doppelganger to set up the extermination array, Thaling also used his powerful divine sense to monitor every movement in the mansion. He also happened to hear the conversation between Gu Liang Mingquan and the Great Elder. Although Thaling had already guessed the evil plan of the Gu Liang family, he was unwilling to believe that there would be such a deranged person in this world. Now, when he heard the Gu Liang clan's clan leader admitted himself, and was not even willing to let go of his clan's 2 martial honorable ancestors, Thaling was incomparably furious. At the same time, a chill rose in his heart. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran pondered for a while and asked in confusion. Thaling, as someone who has existed since ancient times, you must have seen more evil scenes than this. It's just the blood sacrifice of millions of lives. Is it worth it for you to be so angry? After hearing Yu Haoran's question, Thaling was slightly stunned. His eyes revealed a trace of confusion. Then, he closed his eyes and carefully checked his condition. Half an hour later, Thaling opened his eyes and turned his head to look at his original body, the victor, with a complicated look in his eyes. Thaling, what happened to you? When Thaling looked at his original body, Yu Haoran had a strange thought in his heart. It seemed that there was a problem between him and his original body, the victor. He could not help but ask. Yu Haoran, don't ask, and don't use our previous agreement to force me, okay? Thaling turned his head, with a trace of reluctance and a trace of relief in his eyes. Okay. Yu Haoran had never seen such a complicated look in Thaling's eyes. Although he was eager to know what happened, he finally chose to respect Thaling's request and did not continue to ask about the reason for the change in his body. Then, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and adjusted his condition. At the same time, he thought about his plan of driving the tiger to devour the wolf to see if there were any flaws in it. Thaling returned to his original body, the victor, and stared blankly at the victor. No one knew what he was thinking. Boom! Just as Yu Haoran was perfecting his plan, a terrifying aura suddenly rose from the Gu Liang clan's mansion below the clouds. This terrifying aura directly shattered all the clouds within tens of thousands of meters above the mansion. Fortunately, Thaling felt the terrifying aura in time and immediately used his powerful divine sense to help him conceal the fluctuation of his aura. He did not let the terrifying aura discover anything unusual. Thaling, this is the aura of a martial venerable. Yu Haoran asked with some fear as he carefully felt the destructive power contained in the aura just now. Although it is the aura of a martial venerable, it is only the cultivation of a martial venerable. Facing Yu Haoran's fear, Thaling said with disdain. If you use the possession technique, you'll have a 70% chance of killing him with the laws of time has a scar and blossoms fall. Moreover, according to the speed of the aura just now, the old guy who just woke up will not live for long. As Thaling finished his disdainful evaluation of the martial venerable who just woke up, another aura that was slightly stronger than before rose from the mansion below the clouds. It is also an old guy who will not live for long. Facing the rise of the second aura, Thaling's evaluation was still very disdainful. Both of them are at the peak of the third tribulation quasi-martial venerable. Just as the second aura in the mansion below the clouds was retracted, Thaling was about to remind Yuhauran to leave this place. Suddenly, a familiar aura came from the surveillance formation in the Yuan pavilion of the Twin Ox Mountain. After carefully observing the origin of the familiar aura through the surveillance formation, Thaling reminded Yuhauran. Thaling, could it be the enforcer of the Blue Dragon clan? Yuhauran asked nervously with a hint of excitement. That's right. Nodding his head, Thaling looked in the direction of the Twin Ox Mountain through the space in the Sea of Consciousness and reminded him. Chapter 11:25. In the clouds above the mansion. 2 hours. After hearing the time given by Thaling, Yuhauran calculated carefully. Then, he immediately flew away from the clouds above the mansion and followed the direction of the Twin Ox Mountain. After flying for about 1,000 miles, he finally stood on a cloud. Yuhauran, as a member of the Blue Dragon clan who possesses the bloodline of the ancient Blue Dragon guardian beast, the enforcer not only has terrifying strength, but also excels in speed. Thaling could not help but remind Yuhauran when he saw that the location of the enforcer of the Blue Dragon clan was too far away from the Guliang clan's mansion. 1,000 miles away is too risky, it's safer to be closer. Thaling, 1,000 miles distance is just right. Shaking his head, Yuhauran chuckled as he took out a pill bottle from his storage ring. Seeing Yuhauran take out a pill for no reason, Thaling asked with interest, Yuhauran, what's this pill bottle? Without answering Thaling's question, Yuhauran directly opened the pill bottle. Then, a pungent smell wafted out from the pill bottle. This seems to be the divine dragon blood essence, used to activate the Four Symbols concentration formation in the storage ring of the Four Symbols sect leader. Although he could not smell the pungent smell coming from the pill bottle, Thaling could guess the origin of the divine dragon blood essence after it was purified and fused with different types of divine dragon blood essence in the pill bottle. Nodding his head, Yuhauran took out the Blue Dragon's Four Symbols formation flag from his storage ring. A strange smile appeared on his face. Yuhauran, since you want to borrow the power of the Heavenly Way to eliminate the enforcer of the Blue Dragon clan and the peerless martial honorable of the Guliang clan, why do you have to do this? When he saw Yuhauran take out the divine dragon blood essence and the Blue Dragon formation flag, Thaling, who knew what Yuhauran wanted to do, asked in confusion. Thaling, no matter what, the Guliang family is a powerful family with hundreds of thousands of years of history. Perhaps they know about the Blue Dragon family, that is a guardian family. Yuhauran sat cross-legged on the cloud and placed the pill bottle and array flag in front of him. He took a deep breath and said, "The law enforcers of the Blue Dragon clan can transform into a blue dragon. Their characteristics are too obvious. I'm worried that the Guliang clan will be too afraid of the power of the Blue Dragon clan and will ultimately choose to tolerate and explain. If that's the case, I definitely won't be able to use the power of the Heavenly Tao to achieve my goal of killing the Blue Dragon clan's enforcer. If I use the divine dragon blood essence and the formation to transform into a blue dragon, then take the initiative to provoke and attack them, the enraged Guliang clan will definitely retaliate. As long as they can fight, the punishment of the Heavenly Tao will appear. Okay, we'll act according to your plan." Yuhauran's plan could be said to have considered all aspects. In this regard, Thaling nodded and agreed to his plan. He immediately used Emperor Wu's divine sense, and began to control the area within a radius of 10,000 miles, so that he could discover the Blue Dragon clan's enforcers in the first moment. Then, he would let Yu Haoran use the divine dragon blood essence, and the formation flag in time to execute the plan of driving the tiger to devour the wolf. Time passed by minute by minute. Yu Haoran, the Blue Dragon clan's enforcers are here. The enforcers, who originally needed 2 hours to reach Lei City, only took 1.5 hours to appear in the area controlled by Thaling's divine sense. This also indirectly proved that the true strength of the 2 enforcers of the Azure Dragon clan was definitely far greater than their cultivations. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He then swallowed the divine dragon blood essence in the elixir bottle and directly executed the 4 symbols concentration formation. After the execution of the formation, the 2 enforcers from the Blue Dragon clan also appeared in Yu Haoran's extended divine sense. 2 little green insects from the Green Insect clan, you want to kill me? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourselves? Are you qualified? While using the formation flag to transform into the Blue Dragon, Yu Haoran used his divine sense to humiliate and provoke them verbally. Sinful person, how dare you humiliate the Guardian clan, you deserve to die. After hearing Yu Haoran's humiliating words, the 2 enforcers from the Blue Dragon clan were instantly furious. When they saw Yu Haoran transform into the Blue Dragon and provoke them by waving his dragon tail, they were even more furious. The enforcer who had also transformed into the Blue Dragon roared and chased after him with a murderous aura. After turning his head to look at the 2 Blue Dragon that were exactly the same as him and emitting a strong murderous aura, Yu Haoran secretly exclaimed that the heavens were helping him. Then, he sped up and rushed to the Guliang clan in Lei City. Although they had both transformed into the Blue Dragon, Yu Haoran used the divine dragon blood essence and the formation to transform, while the 2 enforcers used the Blue Dragon bloodline in their bodies. Therefore, the difference in speed between them was quickly revealed. In this regard, Yu Haoran did not panic at all. Instead, he used his divine sense to humiliate and provoke them from time to time. You 2 little green worms, I have the protection of a marshal honorable. If you have the guts, come and kill me. If you don't have the guts, then crawl back obediently for yours truly. Yu Haoran, you have committed a heinous crime. You deserve to die 1,000 times and be hacked into 1,000 pieces. After hearing Yu Haoran's humiliating and provoking words, the strongest enforcer clenched his teeth and scolded him. However, it was a pity that the law enforcement officers, who lacked experience in verbal confrontations, could only say the same few sentences back and forth that could not infuriate anyone. Brother Gio, stop scolding. Let's quickly catch up to that kid and use the clan's torture methods to let him know the consequences of insulting us. Another law enforcement officer immediately reminded his comrade, who had slowed down due to the constant insults. All right. The enforcer who was called Brother Gio responded and continued to increase his speed to chase after Yu Haoran. When he was less than 10 miles away from the Guliang clan's mansion, Yu Haoran directly burned all the divine dragon blood essence in his body in exchange for the extreme speed of the Blue Dragon. Then, he used his divine sense to shout at the corners of the mansion. Cowards of the Guliang clan, I, Yu Haoran, am here. Come out quickly and accept your death. After hearing Yu Haoran's shout using his divine sense, the Guliang clan, which had just calmed down, suddenly panicked. Then, experts and powerhouses with powerful auras quickly rose into the sky one after another. Yu Haoran, there's a road to heaven, but there's no door to hell. Guliang Yueqiang, who had a conflict with Yu Haoran before, immediately said with a sinister smile when he saw Yu Haoran, who had returned to his original appearance. However, before he could finish his threat, he was interrupted by Yu Haoran's scornful sarcasm. Chapter 11:26. In the mansion of the Guliang clan. After diverting the trouble to someone else, Yu Haoran took advantage of the fact that the experts of the Guliang clan, who had ascended into the sky, had their attention on the two azure dragons that were following closely behind to rush into the Guliang clan's mansion. Then, he sped up and rushed towards the courtyard where the martial revered expert was cultivating. "Just two little worms, how dare you try to destroy my Guliang clan?" Looking at the two blue dragon that were quickly chasing after him, Gu Liang Yueqiang sneered with disdain. "Master, I think you're really tired of living." Accompanied by a mocking shout, Gu Liang Yueqiang, who had taken out his natal sword, directly performed a heaven-level sword technique and slashed at the blue dragon that was rushing to the front. The other martial royal and martial sage powerhouses of the Gu Liang clan joined forces to attack the second blue dragon that was behind. The law enforcers of the Blue Dragon clan, who had been blinded by anger, did not notice the abnormality in front of them at all. Seeing that someone dared to take the initiative to attack him, the blue dragon that was rushing to the front opened its huge dragon mouth and spat out a mass of dragon saliva that contained a huge amount of energy and exuded an extremely high temperature at Gu Liang Yueqiang. At the same time, the swaying dragon tail directly met the sharp sword chi that was slashing at him. Boom! The swaying dragon tail was the first to shatter the sharp sword chi formed by Gu Liang Yueqiang's heaven-level sword technique. Boom! The dragon saliva that contained the peak power of a third tribulation quasi-martial venerable directly blasted Gu Liang Yueqiang into countless particles. Boom! The second blue dragon that was attacked by many powerhouses also spat out a mouthful of dragon saliva and swayed its dragon tail to block everyone's attack. Accompanied by a strong roar, the 7 martial sages and 11 martial royal powerhouses that were attacking together were also blasted into powder by the dragon saliva that was spat out. Who dares to kill my clansmen of the Gu Liang clan? Just as the 2 law enforcers of the Blue Dragon clan easily killed Gu Liang Yueqiang and the others, a terrifying aura suddenly came from the depths of the mansion. Accompanied by the terrifying aura, a white-haired old man with 1 foot in the grave instantly appeared in front of the law enforcers. "Gu Liang clan, what is your relationship with Yu Haoran?" The enforcer quickly returned to his original form and took out his natal magic artifact, a stone seal the size of a fist. Then, he looked nervously at the white-haired old man and asked. After all, the white-haired old man who had suddenly appeared before him was a genuine martial honorable. "You still haven't answered me. Why did you slaughter my clansmen just now?" Looking at the 2 blue dragon law enforcers who had returned to their original forms, the white-haired old man's cold voice made Gu Liang Mingquan and the other elders who had rushed over feel a chill in their hearts. "I'm Xianjiu, he's Xianshi. We're enforcers from one of the 4 great guardian families, the Blue Dragon family." Seeing another martial saint appear beside the white-haired old man, the enforcer who called himself Xianjiu temporarily put away the arrogance in his heart and introduced himself in detail. After hearing Xianjiu's introduction, the 2 white-haired old men who were martial honorables, Gu Liang Mingquan, and the other elders who were quasi-martial honorables, had a tinge of fear in their eyes. After all, the Gu Liang clan, which had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, not only knew about the 4 great guardian families of the Tianxian continent, but they had also fought side by side with them. They were familiar with and understood the power and terror of the Blue Dragon family. Greetings to the 2 respected law enforcers, I'm Gu Liang Yanjun. Gu Liang Yanjun's cold voice was replaced by a gentle tone as he greeted them respectfully. Then, Gu Liang Yanjun asked in confusion, "Respected law enforcers, may I ask why you attacked my Gu Liang clan? Yu Haoran has violated the rules of heaven and committed a heinous crime. We're here on Elder Ao Xian's order to arrest him." Seeing the change in attitude of the crowd, Xianjiu rekindled his pride and spoke arrogantly like a deity from the 9 heavens. Then, Xianjiu looked coldly at the people of the Gu Liang clan and shouted. Tell me, what's the relationship between you and Yu Haoran? Respected law enforcers, please don't misunderstand. Yu Haoran has nothing to do with our Gu Liang clan. Seeing that Xianjiu had misunderstood the relationship between the Gu Liang clan and Yu Haoran, Gu Liang Mingquan, the patriarch, quickly stepped forward to explain. Then why did you stop us from arresting Yu Haoran just now? Gu Liang Mingquan's explanation did not dispel the suspicion in Xianjiu's heart. He still questioned them coldly. Misunderstanding, it's definitely a misunderstanding. Thinking of Gu Liang Yueqiang and the others who had been killed by Xianjiu and Xianshi, Gu Liang Mingquan could not be bothered to explain. In fact, we and Yu Haoran have a life-and-death relationship. Because 9 days ago, Yu Haoran used the rules of the Heavenly Tao to immediately swear an oath with our Gu Liang clan that he would not rest until he was dead. What did you just say? Xianjiu's face changed when he heard Gu Liang Mingquan mention the blood oath. What blood oath? Respected enforcers, I said. Before Gu Liang Mingquan could finish his explanation, the sky above the mansion suddenly darkened. Accompanied by the darkening sky, a single emotionless eye slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The originally emotionless lone eye, upon seeing Xianjiu and Xianshi floating in the air above the mansion, actually showed a trace of anger in his eyes. Following that, 2 purple lightning bolts as thick as a thumb shot towards Xianjiu and Xianshi. Xianshi, hurry back to the clan. Seeing the purple lightning bolts shot out by the eye, Xianjiu's face changed drastically. He immediately transformed into the blue dragon and shouted at Xianshi. Seeing that Xianjiu and Xianshi had transformed into the blue dragon and were planning to escape, the anger in the eye intensified. The speed of the 2 purple lightning bolts increased. Yu Haoran, how dare you trick us? Just as the purple lightning bolts shot towards the blue dragon and began to destroy his vitality, Xianjiu roared to the sky with grief and indignation. Boom! Accompanied by the angry roar and the sound of thunder, the 2 blue dragons, who had transformed into more than 1,000 meters long, instantly turned into dust under the bombardment of the purple lightning bolts. Seeing the single eye in the void and the purple lightning bolts that had just killed the enforcers, Gu Liang Yanjun and Gu Liang Lijun, who were in the martial venerable realm, immediately cast a sealing spell and quickly suppressed their cultivation to the 9th level of the martial saint realm. Glancing coldly at Gu Liang Yanjun and Gu Liang Lijun, the anger in the single eye gradually disappeared into the void. However, at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the depths of the Gu Liang clan's mansion, shaking the earth and mountains. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.